What if the gear world wants to keep you confused? What if this jargon is designed to keep you confused? What if there was a way that we could find out how not to be confused? And what happens if it comes from a guy with the best hair on the internet? I am Hella Sailor Joe. Welcome to the Pedal Dive Podcast. My co-host today, as ever, is
John Mulholland, Space Wolf. Pleased to be here with two of my favorite YouTube content creators on these kinds of subjects. I mean, I've been waiting for this one to happen for a while.
Oh, man.
And yeah, I'm supposed to introduce myself. My name is Marko. Most people don't know my name. And I run the channel, so-called channel, Slightly Technical, where we are not really slightly technical. a little bit more technical usually for most people, but yeah, that's the thing what we do here. Guys, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me. This is my first podcast. I have to say it on air. I have to tell everybody that it's my first time, so bear with me, please. Don't be mad if I say something wrong. Because I tend to do that.
There's no wrong, mate. Just better questions.
Oh yeah, by the way, while my mic was not working, I was asking you a question regarding swears and curses on the podcast.
Absolutely, because don't fucking swear.
Okay.
no, you're good, mate.
No,
good. I'm not worried about monetization or anything for these. It's more about just having fun and getting to know people.
Yeah, I just sometimes, because English is not my native language, and I kind of tend to curse sometimes. But because in my native language, I curse a lot, and I know it's not polite. But I've watched your podcast, and really, like most of the time, your guys are really super polite. So
I'm super trying hard. After 22 years in the Navy, I swear like a sailor. Funnily enough.
By the way, Joe, I watched one video of yours. You said you are the chief engineer.
Yeah, mate.
From now on, I'm gonna call you chief, because when I heard that you were a chief engineer, then I figured that I should be on time for this podcast. Everything should be ready. Mic should be working. Like everything should be proper.
He hasn't been on our first few podcasts.
I was going to say, yeah, I don't know if it is. It's always me who's late and always me who has technical difficulty. Usually, as I was saying before, my wife turning off the internet with the washing or something like that. Always. In fact, I think we did a podcast in here, John, when we had no windows or door, and it was just like an open space.
Oh yeah, it was an echo chamber.
November.
I remember you had like the slapback echo going on.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have anything on the walls yet, or
yeah. Well, I ended up
some of those.
Sorry, go ahead, mate.
Sorry, guys. No, I just wanted to say that there's some of those podcasts which are, everybody has these things happening. Like there's a lot of shit happening with the gear, but the information in the podcast is absolutely the best. When you watch Stephen Fryette for 5 hours getting drunk and talking, going on tangents, and audio stops for like 5 minutes and they're talking.
I feel like,
but you still watch it.
If you're on for a couple of hours, your personality is going to come through and people will get to know you.
That's why I absolutely love about it. I absolutely love that about it. Yeah.
It's killed television for me. Like I don't watch TV. As we were saying, I'm podcasts or YouTube videos or stuff like that. I feel like I know loads of people, but I don't actually know them. Do you know? It's time to go up to people and say, "Hello, mate. I'm Joe. You don't know me, but I feel like I know you." It's mad.
Yep. But it is like that, most definitely. And it really, as a forum, the podcast has really changed everything. In general, the long form, the whole thing that's kind of honest. I mean, I don't have TV since 2015, I think.
Yeah, I mean, everything.
I do have a TV with like YouTube. I watch YouTube videos on the TV, but I don't really have cable television. I don't pay for it, and I also rip the cables out. So I don't.
So you don't have them.
I don't want it.
You don't have them like trying to shove it in there.
No chance. No, interference. Like nothing. That's the cable.
This is going to sound mad, but I wouldn't know how to turn our telly over. My missus goes mad. I've never paid a bill. I pay our mortgage, and that's the bill I pay. So I've never paid a bill. I don't know how to turn the telly over. I wouldn't even know who provides our electricity and gas. That's like a wife job type thing. I'm just so institutionalized Navy. It's like turn up for work, do your job, shut up, and go home. It's like that at home, like dishes, whatever. I don't have any of the old.
My girlfriend now, so she listens to this. She needs to hear this stuff. That's the way how it's done. Proper wife business. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. She definitely wears the trousers in our relationship. Like I may be the chief in work, but I'm most definitely the underling when I'm at home. Like,
yep.
Yeah, but that's great, because the most important thing is that you find someone with whom you can actually work. It's a back and forth thing. So we're all different. So yeah, sometimes my best friends, when I see their girlfriends, I'm like, I would fucking kill this bitch in 5 minutes. Like, they just work out. That's how it's supposed to be.
That's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, there's somebody for everyone.
Yeah. By the way, since you are a chief, I used to work on a cruise ship for around 5 years. Used to work as an engineer, and that's why when I heard that you were a chief engineer, that's why it was absolutely fun for me, because spend a lot of time with the chief.
Oh, cool. Whereabouts did you do the runs? Like, where was your ship going?
Oh, just before we go into that topic, I want to say something very important, at least something that's important for me. The fact that I said that I worked on a cruise ship doesn't make me in any way similar to you, because you work in the Navy. Those are two different things. Whoever is listening to this stuff, like, these things are very different. So I'm not saying that we are colleagues. Because a chief engineer in the Navy is a chief engineer in the Navy. Chief engineer on the cruise ship is a guy who usually spends most of his time on the bridge drinking coffees and just thinking about how he can save some fuel so he doesn't lose the bonus. All right? So he has no idea.
I know which life I'd pick, and it's not the one that I've got.
Oh, yeah. But all right, folks, there are some benefits on the cruise ship. Let me tell you something about
the boat gig.
But definitely, yeah. I was. You asked where we were going. Over the years, we actually went. I pretty much think that I visited, all the continents on the planet. We've been pretty much everywhere. And I don't know where to begin, if I should even begin. But definitely, I've been around the world. It is one of the best experiences ever in my life. It is absolutely crazy. But at some point, I just.
One place. Sorry, mate. I'm dying to know this. I ask everyone in the military too. If you had to pick one place that you could say was the most memorable or the best place you've been to, where would it be?
That's a really hard question to ask someone like me who has been doing this on a fucking cruise ship, all right? So I had all the fun in the fucking world, and been in all these places. But, I remember this day. I always imagined, because you always have these places. You have these places that, for example, that are kind of underwhelming because you expect something super, super special. But when you get there, it's not that good. But 100%. Then you have these places that are unexpectedly good. But then you have these places which are, you expect them to be awesome. You imagine them to be awesome, and they are fucking awesome, Mm-hmm. And the moment when I came to Vietnam and got this paper from this guy in a green uniform, because they had to give these passes out, whatever, and I remember putting my headphones on and playing Rage Against the Machine and just walking down the pier, going to Vietnam. Fucking amazing. That's the best time of my life, like, that was absolutely crazy.
It's such a beautiful country.
Yeah.
I've never been.
Yeah.
Never been.
Well, so speaking of some people from around the world, we've got some of our people in the chat too. We got John Pardo saying good evening. Dave Barry from Ireland. We got Justin Drawbridge and Francesco Doglio. Hope I pronounced that correctly, from Italy.
Oh yeah. Oh, Wadey's just popped in as well. That wasn't the one I was meant to click on. Hello, mate. How's it going? You really did need to super chat, Wadey. Thank you very much. That's amazing. We might actually make it to the point where we pay for our streaming service soon. It's insane. Honestly, YouTube gives you like 10 pence for the podcast. It's mad. Well, thank you very much. And Dan Minchet, I'll be seeing you soon in Brighton, mate. He's ex-Navy as well. Poor lad. Class. Yeah, I think out of all the places I've been to, mate, the place that I didn't expect to be good but was amazing was Guam. Like, I had the best time of my life in Guam. Out of everywhere I've been, you know, Dubai's all good and flashy, and as you say, you think it's going to be good, and it is good. But Guam was just on another level. Like getting drunk and shooting guns. I don't even like guns. I'm British. We don't do guns. But we went shooting, and they wouldn't let us in. They're like, "Go on, boys. You got like 3 hours to go and sober up before you can shoot." Like, all right. What do we do with our 3 hours? Find a near sports bar and drink shots. That's what we do. And, well, I had this American guy working for me. His name's Josh. He's a Master Chief now. And he was like, just don't say anything when you go in and they'll give you a weapon. But if you talk, they're never going to give you one. And there's one lad who sounded like, I'm holding the scruff of his neck. Dave Pearce, he's a chief as well. I'm holding the scruff of his neck to keep him on his feet. And they still give him a weapon. It was fantastic. But yeah. All I wanted to do was shoot a Desert Eagle .50, and he didn't have the rounds for it. You know, because of Vinnie Jones on a Snatch. And mine is a Desert Eagle.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I've done the Dirty Harry thing, you know, the big pistol. Yeah, class.
44.
I'm not even interested in it, mate, but it was just, you know, the whole island was amazing. Like catching tuna and eating sashimi straight off the fish. It was just real cool time. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that people actually realize how crazy is the Navy. Like how crazy just being in with a bunch of men and nobody's sane. Like everybody's crazy in their own way.
Yeah, it's mad. And when you're away, it's like nothing's really real. Like the money isn't real. You're just spending whatever's there. You don't care because you've been at sea for like, especially Guam, because we had the whole COVID thing going on. So we sailed past all these amazing places. It's like, oh, look, there's Singapore. Bye, Singapore. Oh, look, there's Indonesia. Bye, Indonesia. And we went to Japan and we weren't allowed out the military base, you know, even though that was pretty good still. But yeah, we didn't get anywhere. And then we got to Guam and it was like, all bets are off, mate. It was class.
You know, when you mentioned COVID, I said something about Vietnam. I actually had a plan to disembark after my contract was done. I was doing these things like, you know, you would work for like 3 months or something like that. I had really good like working conditions. Like I would work 3 months or 2 months because I was this communication IT officer. You would know, like I would be doing like all the electronics on board and I'll like work with the chief electrician but in my company, I was also the IT administrator. It's like doing, you know, 5-man job. But what I wanted to say is that, sorry, I'm getting some notifications. When COVID started, I remember the chief engineer calling me during the night to switch off like the internet and the TVs and everything so the guests don't go mad because they would see the chart that's normally running on all the TVs on the entire cruise ship. They would see the chart that the ship is, you know, has actually changed course. And I was supposed to disembark and I already booked my hotel in Hanoi and I was supposed to go to Vietnam for like a month and a half backpacking trip. You know, they closed off the border. You know, we ended up in Thailand and I'm not going to talk about that. But then when I came back home, so, you know, but then when I came back home, I was like, you know, I really need to go for a vacation. And honestly, I was crazy at the time. And it's very weird thinking about it from this perspective now that we know what actually happened. But I was like, this is again going to be something, you know, crazy happening in Asia. I'm just going to go the other way. So I went to Panama backpacking. And then I was stuck in the jungle for 3 months.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a place I've always wanted to go to.
Yeah, I mean, Panama was actually quite interesting. Panama City, for all the Panamanians, if anybody ever watches this, I'm sorry, but Panama City is really underwhelming. But Panama in general, it's phenomenal. I ended up in a place called Santa Catalina, which is on the Pacific. it is a place that allegedly has the tallest waves. So in that region or whatever, everybody's going to say that we have the tallest waves. It's like a thing with surfers, but surfers go there and it's a crazy place. It's like you're living in paradise. But the problem was that it is a police country. So when COVID started, they were quite aggressive with the policing. And I was super lucky because that was the only country that closed off incoming and outgoing flights. So I can go.
Oh, you were stuck.
And additionally, being Serbian, you're fucked because you can't go anywhere, without certain visas or something. So there's only one way to go, and that's swimming.
That's a long haul too, brother.
Yeah, she's a swim.
Yeah, but it ended up being crazy. Was a little bit boring, but in the end, when you think about it, I spent that time in nature. I was in a very nice hostel. With like very nice people, with a very nice family, and you would have these little houses and you were on the beach basically. The only problem is that the police didn't allow us to swim in the sea, which was on our practically private beach. Yeah, because you're gonna spread COVID. You remember the madness.
To the sea.
Oh my gosh.
Everything.
Yeah, I do, mate. It is all insane. So on board, we were deployed, and we had these weird rules in place. So you had to wear a face mask 100% of the time, unless you was in shower.
Oh yeah.
So you'd be in work with a face mask on. You'd have to, you go and get your scran, your food or whatever, take your face mask off, eat, put it back on, and it's just like, what a relief at the end of the day when you're like get into your rack, we call it, your bunk, and close your curtain, and then that's it. You can take your mask off. Like fuck me, it was insane. It was so mad that one of the lads on board swallowed an 9mm pistol. He got put in isolation, hollowed some rounds out. Blew his brains out. It was just mental. What a weird time to be alive. Yeah.
We also had these situations. We also had these situations on the cruise ship when somebody would take their own life because of that whole thing. And we were also working in this like limited. For people who don't know, it happens on cruise ships, unfortunately, frequently, because it is a quite a depressing job. If you haven't been a sailor, don't try to be one unless you're like, younger than 30 and you want to go party. So, otherwise you need to be strong.
I describe it as high tempo boredom because you can have nothing for 3 days where you're literally like saving the posters on the wall to read later for when you're really bored. Or you can be like, your arse doesn't touch the floor. How dare you drink a cup of coffee, sat down, because you're so busy for like, you cannot sleep for 3 days because you're working, and then all of a sudden nothing again. It's like high tempo boredom. Mad.
Yeah, it's for me, it was one of the most important things in my life that I ever did, because it was like growing up 101, and it actually meant a lot because you have to do it and you have to survive it somehow. And not all people are built for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like touring as a musician. Like that's one of those things that, you spend a lot of time waiting around for a huge adrenaline jump. That's like in a very, 1.5 to 2 hour window that you get. And, there's a reason why so many of us like turn to all kinds of things to keep ourselves distracted, until we went on and got that ultimate high.
Yeah.
So
I imagine that touring would be like the supreme fun that you can have if you've got like a group of lads that you get on with, a van, and you just place to place to place. Like I imagine being on the Cardinal Black tour with Chris Buck and them. I bet you that'd be a right laugh. They just always seem like they're having fun.
It is until it isn't. That's the thing. It's like everybody has their moods, and when you're with somebody 24/7, 365, life on the road. Yeah, life on the road, man. It can grind on you to where you just don't want to like even look at each other on stage. Sometimes there's a reason why bands break up.
Well, yeah,
it's all the stuff that happens.
Yeah, a lot of people don't get it.
Yeah. It's a hard life, and if you're not willing to like live, eat, sleep, and drink and breathe it, then it's gonna like not give you the results that you want. It's not the glitter and glam and glory that everybody thinks it is.
It's usually me
that's what's recorded.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you watch on YouTube. You watch the good stuff.
Yep,
exactly. It's usually me that's the annoying person, I think, because I'm like aggressively happy or just aggressive in general. And like even on that deployment with COVID, when like, you know, you got 40% of the people down, so you're doing all this extra work. Everyone's like face mask and all that. The captain would come around the ship and give it a, how are you? And everyone go, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, whatever. Not for me. I'd be like, sir, I can't believe you're paying me 54 grand a year to be here. I'd do it for free. It's amazing. It's like a holiday. And he'd be like, who the fuck is this guy? And I'd be like, less time alongside, more time at sea, bring it on. And the more you say it, everyone else's spirits like get raised with you. You know what I mean? It's just like, be positive. But after like 9 months of being away and listening to me, just like, love the Navy, love being away. I hate it. But you know what I mean? I think everyone's just like, fuck that guy, get him off the ship. So it's me who's the annoying one.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to talk with me.
I think in what I've actually learned from all these situations is that I would say that you learn to like place boundaries, and if other people are into doing such a thing, then there is a chance that mutual respect can be developed, and then you can function in situations like these. Otherwise, it's a disaster. It's a disaster always. So it's really hard. It's really hard. Most people don't do it. Most people go, do their, 9 to 5 or how you call it, that job. Yeah. You do that, and you go home, and you don't have to struggle with these things, the things that we are describing now. You have to feel it to understand it. Otherwise,
for cruise ships, do you guys have like your own personal space, like a sacred area that no one else? For us, it's just your bed. There is nowhere else. But like a place where you could go and, for example, play your guitar or build pedals or do stuff like that, or is it communal for everything?
Well, it really depends on what you do on the cruise ship. I started off as a musician, so I first went over there. It was like a weird job after I used to work in Warwick, and then for a short period of time. And then after that, I went to the cruise ship. My friend called me over. He needed a guitar player for the cruise ship. At the time, I was like actively playing, and I went over there to play as a guitarist. And, like I was doing some kind of freelancing. I was programming some software in my free time. Obviously, as a musician, you have all the free time in the world, because the only thing you have to do is, you play the gig in the evening, and, you're supposed to be clocked in practicing, but why would I practice German songs? So, they kind of saw me, and then I started my journey on to apply to work as an engineer. It was a problem. Like most things, I had to struggle with this. And after a few contracts as a musician, I started off working as an engineer, and pretty much after my first contract as this, it's like second communication, I became first communication. So I kind of advanced in the whole thing for quickly. And the thing is, as a musician, you get pretty much nothing. You would just get like a shared cabin. I even forgot the nomenclature, I became one of those people who say close the window, instead of the porthole on the ship, Come on, don't say close the window. Yeah. But I'm becoming this guy because I almost said room. So cabin. I didn't say the room, all right? So in any case, you would get this shared cabin, but as an engineer, and also according to law, as you increase in rank, obviously I was a senior officer, then I would get a really nice cabin, and I would have my personal space, which was pretty much big enough to do whatever you want. You shouldn't solder in the room. That's general. Because there are rules on the ship, so you don't start fire. But I was always I had the electrical workshop all the time available. Like I could go anywhere. Most of the time you can spend the time alone, but when it comes to playing guitar, I guess the only place would be like places like the crew bar, where you actually get a lot of people, so you're not really alone. Yeah. But during COVID, you had the entire cruise ship. There was only, 80 of us on a 300-meter long ship. So
that's mental.
Yeah, it's mental. Yeah, it's like a ghost ship. For 2 years, we were doing that, and and pretty much like out of like 80 people, 60 were Asians, and 20 of us like European. And I'm not saying that because I'm racist or anything. That's bullshit, but I'm just, usually the Asians, they don't want to hang out, especially with the officers. They're afraid of them. I was always great with them, and but you would understand that thing, that they don't want to hang out with the officer. I don't know, are they afraid or whatever? But
you're not getting invited for the goat curry and what have you that they always seem to put on.
No, I mean everybody is absolutely friendly over there, and I had so many friends, and I actually hang a lot with the Asian crew, but not everybody is. This is just the real picture. I'm just saying it openly. That's like the reality. For me, it was crazy. I was always great with them, but not a lot of people share my opinion. Not a lot of people like to like mix with the Asian crew.
You get little tribes on board, mate. It's just so on board a warship, it'd be by usually by either by rank or by specialization. So the stokers, the marine engineers, generally wouldn't mix with the deckhands because you're in such a weird small world. Everything becomes tribal.
We hate
and then the chiefs won't go with.
We hate the deck department. So the deck 100%. Department, you don't mess with them, or sorry.
When you get off the ship and you go ashore, you ended up. They're the people they're your rivals. You end up scrapping with them. That's just the way it is, because it's a weird thing on board the ship. You kind of, as you say, it becomes very tribal, and people split into their little groups, and it happens naturally. And there's nothing wrong with it, as you say. Everyone's friendly, but there's always that separation between a little.
Yeah.
The Navy starts to shuffle a deck now and make people like integrate, and so they'll do mess decks where it's like one from each group in a mess deck to try and get people to swap and like change around. But what all it does is create people who don't interact with other humans. So you find that people will go to bed and watch films instead of sit in a mess and have a few beers and talk. So it kind of ruins the Navy because you don't get that camaraderie.
Camaraderie,
yeah, that's the one. Couldn't get my English out there. But yeah,
that's one that I stumble over a lot too, man.
But you find like even like our laundrymen are all Nepalese, they're all ex-Gurkhas, and they'll have their own routine. They won't eat in our dining hall. They cook their own food and stuff. And it's not like they're unfriendly. They're just, everyone has their own separate world, and then you come together as a whole when the ship needs you to, But yeah, as you say,
exactly,
you find the Asian people, they like to cook their own food, and the goat curry stuff.
It was that way my mate when I was working in the furniture industry, and we had a whole lot of Hispanic workers in the factory. Everybody, was like, and then I was hanging out with them, and man, we were eating the best food, and we'd go out and like go to all the different like country bars, and they would always get the best women to come dance. And it was like, hey man, you guys are missing out.
if there's nothing else to say, the English always have the shittiest food. Like no matter where we go, our food is always the shittest.
I got to say, the worst food that I had whenever I traveled to Europe was in England. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. So
I'm just going to stay silent on the topic. I don't want to insult anyone.
So, did you do much pedal building or much music engineering while you was on board, or did that start like post?
No. Well, the thing with me was like music was pretty much the reason why I stopped my job on the cruise ship. I stopped working on the cruise ship pretty much because I kind of said I'm gonna do it for 5 years, and then I decided it's been 5 years, and I just cut it like with a sword. I just did one dry dock, and I said like I'm leaving, and everybody was like, "Why are you leaving?" Because I didn't have any problems in the company. I would, I had a bright future in the corporation, guys. It's super bright, it's super nice, and I just said no to it because in the end you're gonna waste your time and waste your life. And what happened was that I was absolutely in love and infatuated with music and engineering and building amps and pedals, and of course I would do that when I'm home. I had a lot of time to do that, but I just wanted to do it more. And in the end, like I wanted to make it my living, because I didn't want to spend my days on the cruise ship. So that was pretty much that was the honest reason. I didn't want, because it's a trap.
It's
It's nice. You get some money. You come home. You get to spend that money. It's an easy life because when you go over there, people actually cook for you. they clean your shit. You got people to clean your cabin, to wash your stuff, and and you get used to that stuff. So
and you never grow up. That's like me with not paying the bills. You never grow up because it's all taken care for you. It's so bad.
Yeah.
You find a lot of
welcome to the real life. When you come back home.
That's why a lot of people end up homeless after the military and stuff, because it's like all of a sudden, bam, everything that you knew is
it's a totally different reality. There's no like deprogramming to get you ready for like entering. It's just like, all right, here you go.
Well, I only bought my house like when was it? The end of last year, and I 22 years. I was almost leaving the Navy, and I was like, I haven't got anywhere to go. I got a family, a wife, kids, and stuff. Like, I better start growing up now and take the plunge.
Have a place to land, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
some people make it work.
Yeah,
some people make it work. There are a lot of people on the cruise ship that I know that have a functioning family, but there's a lot more of them who have a very not well functioning family.
Any life at sea is hard on a family. It's a miracle that I'm still married. And if my wife ever watches this, she'll be like, "You're lucky."
It's
so bad.
Yeah.
You won the lottery, mate. Yeah,
because when you're away, like time sort of stops for you when you're away. It's like pause, but for the rest of the world, it just keeps going. It's madness, mate. It's not too bad now.
It's quite interesting.
She can see how many guitars are by now because they're here. That's the only downside. While I was away, it's like, oh look, a guitar shop. I shall go and have a look, and you can buy whatever you like, and no one's ever the wiser, Yeah,
got a couple of comments here too that I just saw.
I'm terrible at the commenting.
Antisha Pedalorina Bellini.
Mike.
Yeah, did my first pedal kit during lockdown.
Oh, get in, mate. You know what? I wish that I was doing YouTube when lockdown was on.
I was watching more, than I was.
Yeah, because I think that would have been a great time to get into it.
Yeah, I mean,
oh yeah, it's much better than today.
Had a couple of like false starts with it, but it was one of those things where
Eddie makes the best pedals ever. By the way, people, if anyone hasn't checked out,
good afternoon from San Francisco.
The Karen or the Claren, whatever. It's like a clon thing. Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. The aesthetics of them are just hilarious. But yeah,
the Ken.
Yeah, the Ken. Yeah. So what sort of things have you got in the pipeline, mate? Have you got many things coming down now? Because you seem to be just banging the videos out.
Oh yeah, well, I'm not as satisfied maybe as you are, because lately I've been kind of laying low with the videos. It's been really busy, and I was working on something that actually I wanted to like announce for the first time on this podcast, which is this is the moment. So what I have been working on for the last, it has been planned for quite a long time, but I started my Slightly Technical Academy, which there's that pitch, like that website that I say every time in the video. But basically, I wanted to do like online education regarding all these things that we do, regarding amplifiers, regarding pedals, audio engineering in general. I thought that maybe I would be that I could just bring a little bit of a different approach, and that's actually something that is almost finished now, and it will be out. It will be out within it's actually on pre-sale now, and it will be out in like 2 weeks or something like that as soon as I finish it, because most of it is already recorded, most of it is already edited. I just have to fill up the stuff on the website. So basically the first thing that I was working on is this course on the Big Muff, and
oh nice.
It's a good place to start.
It's a little bit crazy, because I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just doing something. I'm just making something that I wish I had when I started out doing this. All right. So that's the most honest way to say it, because there are different, when you start doing such a thing, like a course in education. You have to like really, really think it through and figure out how you're going to do this, because there's a lot of information there, how you're going to make it, how you're going to pack it, and so on. But pretty much is going to, I guess it's going to end up more like 10 or 12 hours of content, and it's going to be super in detail regarding only the big buff this time. But what comes next at the Academy is going to be content like of the same form, but for other pedals, going like super in depth. And in addition to that, there's a lot of I'm actually teaching also like LT Spice, which is like super easy, and some stuff that you can actually use. I'm sharing obviously all the files, everything's prepared where you can actually follow up and like truly absolutely fully understand what that pedal does. And it's not mathematical for all the people who are thinking like I'm doing the maths. No, I had to do the maths on the university, and I'm not doing those things at all. Actually, I'm just utilizing a lot of the tools that are available to us today to help us do that exact thing. Obviously, you need to understand a few things, how the circuit functions, but there's no math involved. At least it's like minimal math, like division and multiplying and stuff like that, and using like online calculators and a lot of free software which is available for designing stuff and designing working on pedals. It's like a DIY course with which you can learn how to build one, but you can also learn how to mod one, how to make it unique, so it goes like really in depth. So that is actually a thing that I've been working on lately, and that is the reason why I didn't put out a lot of videos, which is something that I will be back at as soon as I finish.
That's class. I feel like that's the sort of thing that needs to be out there. I know Brian Wampler's done his course as well, hasn't he? He's started putting it out there, and I think
it's just real. Yeah, he's taking people through some like real basic steps. I think a lot of the people that have already been through all those basics, they're hungry for what this next level kind of thing is. And that big muff circuit, it's got so many variations, so many different companies have done their version of the big muff circuit.
I love that you've picked a circuit and gone with that and not tried to do the broad strokes thing like Brian has, because I feel like there's the gap in the market for it. We have got some more comments. Marcus Reeves is on, the Tone Sage himself.
I love that.
Hello, mate. And we've also got Brian again. Hello, mate. How's it going? Glad to see you. Hello from Scotland. Studio 9 Jam. Hello, mate. I bet it's raining up there still, is it? Do you know what? I've been based up in Scotland a load of times. We got like a submarine base up there, and it's just always overcast, which is probably why that base is there. But it's just, it's like, honestly, they do the nicest food in the UK. Everything's fried, and everything's like deep fried in chili. It's fantastic, including Mars bars and stuff. Really weird, but it's all good stuff. But they have got the worst weather, and it's like where the sun goes to die.
Yeah. I remember I've been to Kirk Wall like 30 times, and I would always go to this bar that was called Skippers. And my father used to run a bar which was called Skippers here in my hometown in the city center. And I'd always go to the Skippers. And I remember one time, because I love the Scots, for us people from the Balkans, like it's great because we come to the bar, we kind of almost start a fight, and they're super cool about everything, because they're immediately like provoking me, and I'm the guest and he's provoking me. Look, whatever, he says something about football, like there was some match between Scotland and Serbia, like I don't give a fuck about football, but immediately there's a conversation going on. And I remember there was a lady came in, ordered this dark island, like dark ale. It was like 1400, so a little bit afternoon, and she was telling me that they have like 27 days of sunlight like in the entire year. I was like, wow, I come from a sunny place, so it's like super weird. I don't know how I'd be. It's a nice place to visit. I don't know if I'd be there the entire year.
It explains why a lot of my Scottish side of the family has like really pale skin and red hair, no sun, and malnourished.
Well, I didn't know that that's where the term hillbillies come from.
Hey,
that blew my mind. That so they're literally King William, Billy,
yep,
and he lived in the hills. So a Scottish that immigrated to the US. Did not know that.
Yeah, part of the last uprising that got quashed and we fled.
Yeah,
came to the Highlands of North Carolina.
Also, the most aggressive people that you're ever likely to meet.
Oh yeah, just as I would as anything else, I'm sure.
So I had these two guys work for me, right? Jake and Jim, their names are, and they were these two young Scottish lads who were like friends from school, joined the Navy, went through training together, and then joined the ship together. Really weird. And they were just like absolute piss, always drinking bloody, what's that wine stuff they drink? Buckfast. It's like the strongest wine in the world or whatever. And just off their nuts. And they used to like get drunk and tattoo themselves in the mess. Like, and he'd come in and it'd be like a hand-drawn spanner that looked like a penis on their leg or something. Like, what are you doing? I wish I had a picture to one of them's joining my work next week on a promotion course. I'm going to torture them. But anyway, they were just off their nuts. But they're like the hardest working guys in the world, but just always drunk and always tattooing themselves. Odd.
Makes you wonder what Mr. Scott had under that uniform on the Starship Enterprise. You know,
yeah, Star Trek. Yeah,
their language is terrible. So instead of saying why, they say how. Like, what you mean how? You were like how? Like you mean why?
No, we do that here in the Footh Hills of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yeah,
how's that now? I mean,
yeah,
you hear the Queen's English in some of the areas here.
I'd say something like, shit, mate, I need you to go and pick this up, take it here, drop it off here, get me gear together. And he'd go, how? Like, do you mean why? He'd be like, how? Well, I want you to do it because we've got this job on. So that's a why, mate. I mean, I know I'm from Liverpool and my accent's not great, but Jesus. Yeah. I tell you what, though, then one of them's left the Navy now. Biggest mistake ever. This other guy, his name's Jim. And he's not the best looking lad, bless him. But he's a lovely person. No, I mean, he's not the best looking lad. And there's this one girl on board who wasn't bad looking. I mean, she was okay. And he chased her, tried to give her lifts home, taking her out for it, trying to get, and finally, the boyfriend, girlfriend, he's made up. He lasted about 6 months. And then he come and see me and said, Chief, I've kicked it into touch. And I was like, why? He said, well, she's getting in the way of me being in the Navy. Like, you just put years worth of trying to pull this girl. And then you're like, no, I don't want to be a drunken idiot again. I'm off. It's mad. But
yeah, I can imagine it's heavy.
So one of the things that I just recently was kind of like thinking about that you covered in one of your videos was the way we perceive sound, and how depending on where you're standing at different times whenever you're playing, even through the same rig, and it made me really think about the times where I just wasn't feeling it. Like, was I just standing in a different place? Even though I had everything set up the same way, same guitar, same speakers, same amp, same effects. And that came up today when I was talking to somebody about the different coatings on banjo heads, how they started seeing banjo heads with coating on the inside. And I was like, ooh, that might be to break up the sound in the chamber so that when you're micing it, you're not getting feedback as much. So that was something that I think just sent me down a whole rabbit hole. It's like, oh, how much of what we are actually hearing is just where we're standing and how we're feeling at that particular time. And the idea of going back and listening to recordings over and over again, because we did that in bands all the time. We'd record everything, no matter what. And there were times where we thought we sounded awesome, and we go back on the tape and we sounded horrible. And other times we're like, that shouldn't have even bothered hitting play on that. And then it was just like, whoa, we should put that one on an album. So
yeah, I wonder if the Boss Wazer headphones would have an effect as well, because you can move where your amp is. Mm-hmm. And does the fact that the amp's not there change the way that you perceive it or not, even though you can move it around in a room?
You're talking about on the modeling stuff, actually, right? Yeah.
I've never seen these headphones. Let me just
So you can it's like a wireless thing to your guitar, but it's a whole rig, like a pretend rig or whatever. But you can place the amp in the room somewhere, and while you're walking around, the sound comes from the same place. even though there's no amp there,
So
obviously.
it's like a reference. Basically, you're like
It's like a gyro. The headphones
like a
have got
virtual
gyro
reference.
in,
That's pretty
and
crazy.
they can pinpoint your amp into wherever it is in the room. And I wonder if that affects your perception, or because you know that it's headphones and there's no amp there, and there's no air, like no feedback loop, or is there a feedback loop? I don't know.
Yeah. It is an absolutely crazy rabbit hole, but it's actually far simpler than people have made products now which are ridiculously great. That is a fact. Whatever you buy today, on the market, it is going to sound good under the condition that you can use it properly, obviously. And you can watch a bunch of YouTube videos how something sounds, and people have different solutions to different problems. Some people like them, some people don't like them. Most people that don't like them, they put it down in the comments. But the whole point, which the thing that I find that people are lacking, not people, guitar players, they are people, but I'm talking about
guitar players are people too. Just ask a drummer.
Yeah. I would just say that a lot of guitar players, they came into the audio world without learning anything, any of the basics. And then what happens is that most guitar players, because of, let's just say, some kind of holes in the knowledge about how you perceive sound, how you hear, they end up assigning the blame of why something hears a certain way to the completely wrong thing. People's and that is my experience from working with people, and I've been doing this for like over 10 years now. I've been making pedals, I've been repairing stuff, working with musicians, working with bands, I've been modding amplifiers. That's something that I do today, not most of the time, but mostly I do amplifier mods for musicians who are usually touring musicians, and they would come to me and they would explain to me like, hey, I want it to sound like this, and then I would do some kind of modification to the amp, so they would get something. What I'm trying to say is that I spend a lot of time talking to people, and most of the problems are resolved by just explaining like what to focus on, what to listen for, resolve these problems that you were actually discussing now regarding where you're standing. Like there's so many things about sound that are super complicated, and sometimes it's really hard to explain it to guitar players. And they already start talking about the nitrocellulose lacquer, and that is the reason why this,
because
that's just what I think.
They read it in Guitar Player magazine, or somebody said it in an interview, and it's on the internet, so it must be true. That was a lot of what I ran into. Just people would fail to consider the fact that your guitar is doing these things because there's mechanical issues that are going on. You've got some electrical issues going on. It's not got to do with the fact that the neck lacquer is too thick, or you've got the wrong kind of magnet in your pickup coils.
It could be something simple, as in you just don't know the words or the situation that you're trying to achieve. For example, when I was starting out, the free live in Granada studio recording is my favorite guitar tone. But when I first heard that, Paul Kossoff's tone on it is like, I know now that it's a lower mid-range. Like he's got a Marshall Diamond, and there's this lower mid-range that I just couldn't get from anything. So I had a tiny Terra head, I had a tube screamer, and I had this crappy Les Paul or whatever, but I couldn't get the sound, and I kept turning the tone down on everything. So I had the tone on my amp down. I was like, it's just getting darker and less present in the mix. It didn't sound right. I was like, I just don't understand this. What I needed someone to say is, you don't want to turn it down, mate. What you need is something that's going to boost the lower mids. Do you know what I mean? That's what I was searching for. But I didn't know that. I just thought it's darker, so turn tone down, because I didn't know any better. And I think a lot of people are in that sort of area. They think they want something because they have a perception of what it's going to sound like.
Mm-hmm.
But really, when you say to them, one thing that I do find most of that for this sort of thing is people think they want a germanium transistor in their Rangemaster.
Oh yeah.
But actually they want silicon.
Mm-hmm.
because I love germanium, and that's, for me, that is my favorite, because I like the squawkiness or the voluminess. But what they're looking for is actually silicon. And if I was to pretend and put a silicon in and say, there you go, mate, this is something else, and they'd be like, that is the sound I'm looking for. You nailed it. but actually they're not willing to try that because they've got this block in their head that silicon isn't. I mean, you can get vintage silicon transistors as well if it's vintage that you're after.
Some of my favorite ones, you know, are being used in all of the circuits that I'm building, like 3053s.
Yeah,
you know, like some of these old BC 201s or 210s. I think it's the BC 210s that I found that were really, really interesting. Like old Texas Instrument ones that, you know, I mean, I'm sure that they're in some of the best sounding pedals that are out there, you know, from like back in that day. Just people, they hear one thing and one artist, you know, that sings the praises of something and it becomes unobtainium.
Well, do you know what I find? I find that if you want something rare and expensive, we'll say NKT275 because that's the thing. Even though we all know, and we said on the show many times, they're the cheapest transistors ever back in the day. They're expensive because you can't get them anymore.
Because you can't get them, exactly.
As something disappears, it becomes more expensive. That's the only reason they're expensive. And that little red dot tells you the collector. It doesn't tell you the gain. It was just that analog man bought a batch of white dot ones and a batch of red dot ones, and they had different gain settings. It was just the fact that they could have been any, you know, they're normally red. It's not, I get so many people go, oh, that's a red dot. Like, yeah, it's a transistor, mate. They have red dots on them. That's how they work. The white doesn't mean anything. But if you want to buy that sort of thing, for me, I'm more than happy. But as long as you're under the understanding that it's for either your own satisfaction knowing it's there, not because you think it's going to be the thing that makes the tone, because it's not. I'll find you one that sounds good, but I could do it with someone else. You're paying all that extra money, so then inside your pedal, when you open the back every night, like I do, and believe me, I do. Chris from Artois tell you, I have like
always a screwdriver handy in the house.
Mate, once a week I sit there with the Rangemaster that he built me and just look at it. It's amazing. But if you want to know that transistor's in there, oh yeah. But if you want to know it's in there, then great, it's worth every penny. But if you're a gig and musician and you want the sound, and you're not gonna like, you're not like me, you're not gonna sit there looking inside pedals like a geek. There's a million ways you can do that for much less money. Much less. And I think people
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, people have this this misconception that if you just buy the thing, you'll get the sound. But it's not that. It's a whole raft of things. And I find that what really happens is people have that in their head. They don't get the sound, but because psychosomatically they're like, this is what I'm chasing, they're happy just because that's it. But then when you plug them into something else, like, oh, that's the one.
Yeah, the confirmation bias is real.
Do you find that a lot with your videos? Because I mean, I almost made, funny story, before John said that you were coming on the show, I almost made a video to rebut one of your videos where you're talking about vintage components, and I was going to do like let's watch it, and you talk through like transistors, op amps and stuff, and say these are the old ones, these are the new ones. I'm pretty sure the thumbnail for it's like a clone, you know, the old what is it?
I don't remember, but probably let me go and take a look.
I think I know the video you're talking about. Yeah,
I'll have it here. But I was gonna like what? Oh, look at this! It's literally up on my phone already. There. That one.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
So I was gonna make a video to go along with that and say, well, you know, this is how you can change that, and just bounce some ideas off you. And then I thought I don't need to because you're coming on the show and we can just do it live. But so. Do you find that people have an adverse reaction to you breaking things down in their simple terms and giving people the truth, essentially?
Well, let's just say that my YouTube journey has been interesting, and I have used YouTube as a very interesting platform to make some rather controversial videos. I didn't do that on purpose to achieve a certain goal. I just did it, you know. And I was watching this reaction, and it was a great thing for me because I would read all these comments, and I would like, in all honesty, I would ask myself if I'm right about these things. And there are many things in my videos that I sort of didn't say the right way, I would say, because the first videos were like completely unscripted. I just switched the camera on and I just started shitting on stuff, and it is like that, you know. But yeah, sometimes it's very hard actually making a YouTube video about these things, because there are so many things that you can say that are wrong that would have a certain reaction. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that a lot of these comments actually deserve any attention. I just think it is we are at a weird place when it comes to guitar YouTube. And I made this video. Oh God, yeah. Well, we have to mention that, all right? So I made a certain video where I was just drinking coffee and I laid out some of my thoughts about certain something regarding, guitar YouTube. And unfortunately, some YouTubers, they, responded to this video. I was not even thinking about these YouTubers particularly, but it is a weird place now because nobody's really excited about YouTube videos or gear anymore. And that is the reality. We can all pretend that that's not happening. That is the reality. Just go and take a look at a lot of channels' views, a lot of channels, not all. I know that somebody now would take out, these words out of my mouth, but like, there was a point when everybody wanted to become a YouTuber. And there was a point when everybody wanted to be like, hey, look at this pedal, it does this, and noodle, and, show you this. We are at a point that we have so many pedals and so many amplifiers, and pretty much all of them sound great. And a lot of these people, it is, I feel like there is like a weird reaction to stuff because I feel like people are quite unsatisfied with a lot of their things in their life. There is nothing wrong with the gear and there is nothing wrong with that information. By the way, everything what you said about transistors, and we don't have to talk about this like YouTube stuff because that's kind of bullshit, but it's hard making a YouTube video for this. It's one of the hardest YouTube videos that you can possibly make. If I was a smart guy, then I would, make a YouTube channel, talking about Adidas shoes or something. When you start talking about this, like, everybody, not everybody, a lot of people are going to disagree. There are a lot of engineers in the comments. There are a lot of people who have a lot of all this experience and everything. And it's absolutely fine that we have different opinions on things, but I share some of the things that I have learned over the years. So a lot of hours have been spent doing something that, I come over and share. You don't have to believe me if you don't like it. That's absolutely fine. But what I wanted to say, coming back to the components, making such a video is sometimes like really hard, like depending on what you're supposed to say. Like you really have to pay attention that you're not only right about things, that you don't say something stupid. Like I really try to pay attention, especially in the previous videos, what I'm supposed to be saying. And when it comes to transistors and that kind of stuff, that stuff is absolutely amazing. But the whole point that I'm kind of trying to make is to be in the middle, because I'm not saying that the transistors don't make a difference, because there's a portion of the YouTube community and in general people who are talking about these things. They say that it doesn't make a difference. You're wasting your money. It's all a scam. And unfortunately, I got a lot of people following me thinking that I was this guy trying to expose the grand scam of things. Like, come on, people, like I didn't even, I would read
your name into ChatGPT. That's the answer that it spits out.
Oh, really? Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So I actually took ChatGPT and implemented it into this sort of thing from you, because I noticed that sometimes you say, oh, and if you put that into ChatGPT, you'll get this out. And I was like, that's brilliant. And it's a rabbit hole. But yeah, I think maybe that's the answer that it's expecting me to want. But yeah,
but I'm honestly not really trying to be that guy. My channel is I made a few videos, and I've been doing this for like 4 months, people, and I made a few videos. I made them different. I tried different things. I wanted to bring my production level to a higher level. I wanted to make the videos as best as I can. It is really hard sometimes, and this is not me whining, but it's really hard sometimes for me speaking in English in front of the camera if I didn't get enough sleep, talking about transistors, making sure that I don't say anything that I'm not going to offend someone. It's like a pain in the ass.
Your videos are so polished, though, like so polished. If anyone's watched them, the camera in it,
the edits, everything about it, like
everything is like so crisp. Was that the right way to describe it, do you think, John?
And then the other thing is the information is spot on too. Like it's it's something that could take something that would be just totally boring for a lot of people if it was explained to them in like, your typical classroom type setting, but you're making it where, it's exciting and you get engaged with the fact that, there's like, these little things that you can measure on these things, and there's these things that you can perceive this way. And it's just,
and also English is your second language and you speak it better than me.
It's the cruise ship. It has to be the cruise ship.
Genuinely, they're fantastic. That video I just shown you there, I've watched that probably 5 times now. I love it. It's so I that's what I mean. I was going to make a video where I build the 2 pedals. So this is the one where you're saying the cheap transistors do just as good a job. I build, so I'll use this cheap transistor, and then you go on to the expensive one. Well, actually, this one here has got the nostalgia behind it, and I build that. And I was going to do a video where at the end it's like, I now pit them against each other. That was my plan.
Actually, that's amazing. We can make a collaboration on that. You just make those pedals. I'll make a video about something similar. I love that.
Sounds like
stuff.
a great idea.
Yeah.
Maybe I would and send you it over.
Absolutely. Honestly, I would only talk about these things. I understand that I somehow touched upon some things. I was kind of like criticizing some products in the industry, some of my first videos. You get some of these views, and in the end, what I want to do on my channel is not that. I want to talk about these things. I want to talk about the stuff, that I'm working on my academy, because the course that I make is absolutely filled with that stuff. No, this is like a sales pitch, people. All right. So, but the whole point is, like I'm talking about these stuff, these things, exactly how I think about them. When it comes to like everything that I said in that video, it's not about don't use a vintage component. It's just about like, let's be reasonable about this topic. All right. So let's talk about transistors. By the way, if you measure gain on the transistors, let's first talk about how you're measuring the gain. You're using a $20 multimeter to measure the gain of a germanium transistor. All right. So first, first stage, you're not accounting for the leakage, obviously. But then again, if you take 2 transistors, exactly same transistors that have the exact same gain, they're 2 different devices. Because if you really want to measure transistors, then you should use a curve tracer. A curve tracer is something that nobody makes anymore. Rarely you're going to find one. Nobody has one. When I find one, if you have one, call me. It's like that.
There's no need for them anymore because the components are built to such a standard. You don't need it.
I think I have a curve tracer
one
somewhere.
Yeah, but that's exactly
but I haven't fired it up.
Of the story.
Yeah,
you don't really need it.
Yeah,
I actually said this maybe last week, was it, John? Where I said if you could get the same CAN transistor, the same gain, the same leakage, they can be on all intents and purposes interchangeable, identical. Put them in a circuit, and I'll still have to tweak the EQ to get the sound of one differently because
for each one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I like.
That's the whole point of pedal building. I mean, that's the exact thing. Yeah. That everybody thinks that, especially the circuits that you are working on, people don't understand how these stupid, simple, 6-component circuits are fucking complicated. All right, because if you really start working with them, if you really fire up, a good amp in a good sounding room and crank the amplifier and use that treble booster, then you're going to start realizing that not a single one of them is the same. They're all crazy different and interesting in some different ways. It's very different from some other pedals, such as Cube Screamers, for example, which are much more consistently built. But then again, today when we're talking about these amazing, like realistically amazing pedals that you were going to get either from Wampler or Universal Audio, like that stuff is very consistent, and when you buy such a pedal, it's going to sound great, and there is a market for that. Who likes that? You buy that. If you like a vintage treble booster built by a boutique builder, then buy that. You don't need to argue about that.
What I don't understand is, why is it an either or? Why is it not both? If you look at my board, I've got new stuff, I've got old stuff, I got everything in between. And do you know what? People kind of like, I think what it is this is my theory, is that they pay all this money for this one thing. Maybe it's a quad cortex, or maybe it's a vintage germanium range master, something, and they want to confirm that they made the right choice, rather than just going, well, now I've bought that, what am I buying next? Like I do. Do you know what I mean? I don't go, oh, Melody Makers are the best guitar in the world because I've bought one and I love it. I don't seek to prove that. Now I'm like, I want a Telecaster.
I look at my shelf and I go, what's missing on the shelf? Let's see. Okay, that's next.
Well, my answer is always one more.
Yep, always one more.
It's kind of like for most of those people, I'm just honest about this stuff. Like, hey, it's about you and your ego and your problems. It's not about the pedal or whichever, YouTuber, whoever said something about whatever they said, it doesn't really matter. If you like to buy multiple, buy multiple. If you like to have one and think that one is the best, do that. But what you said was absolutely on point, where people are trying to explain to themselves, to justify their purchase, to say like, this is the best. And I had this because I had some of these videos about digital gear, pardon me, and I have these Tonix packs that I offer on my website, which was like a little thing just so I would have something on my website other than, like the tech pages. And I use the Tonix all the time, and I don't really own the device. I only own the plugin. And whenever I'm working on something, when I'm practicing guitar, especially in the summer, it gets hot, and having big tube amps next to you, it's just hot. So I play the Tonix, and it's absolutely fine. It's not only fine, it sounds great. It works. But when I'm into playing vintage stuff, and then I have 100 boutique pedals that I made, or amplifiers that I modded, then I'm going to play around with that, and it's absolutely fine. You do this or you do that. If I had a gig, if I was a gigging musician now, which probably I'll never be unless I have like an original band, something, I'm not going to do cover stuff. You know what I mean? Like if I was working in a cover band, which is what a lot of people do, I would not take my modded, high watt or Marshall over there, to play a gig, because I can't, B, I won't, it doesn't make any sense. I would take the Tonix or the Quad Cortex, or you can select which one you prefer. It all kind of sounds good when you make it sound good, and it usually sounds shitty because people don't know how to set it up. Whenever I would work as a sound engineer on gigs, a lot of people would come with thousands of euros of equipment. I remember when they started coming up with these Axifxes and with the Kempers, it was a disaster, because you would have people who heard somebody, oh, he's got a Kemper, it sounds great, so I bought a Kemper and it sounds absolutely amazing and it's the best thing ever. They come to a gig, they sound like crap. Why? Because they're not listening. And that's where we're coming back to the story that we actually started off with. Where I really think that people should learn how to listen.
Yep.
And then everything is going to be better when it comes to gear, equipment, because they'll be able to develop their own opinion about things. I can't, and the fact when you get into psychoacoustics and all this kind of stuff, like the fact that we do not hear the same, none of us, because of multiple reasons of the inner, middle, outer ear, because I don't want to sound nerdy or any of that stuff, but there are many reasons for us not hearing the same. We have a different IR, people. Everybody has a different IR in their ears. So imagine that. Try changing IRs of speakers in your DAW, and that's pretty much the change that happens between people. So I can't tell you about how a Greenback is better than the V30 because you prefer the V30. You know what I mean? People are so aggressive.
It's even more than. It's more than that, mate. People's ears change themselves over time as well. If you listen to someone like
absolutely
Gibbons, for example, early on, I loved his early tone. That was like, ZZ Top's first album is up there with the best for me. But if you listen to him now, he's so bright, and that's because his hearing's changed over time. And so he's trying to get in his head what he was at originally by turning up the high end.
There was a sound engineer at a club that I knew that over time, every gig, the bass got louder and louder and louder because he had lost all of the bass frequency hearing in his hearing, and he thought that there was no bass in the mix. And pretty soon, that's all that was in the mix. And people started having to bring their own sound guy in to come in and turn the bass down on the sly.
What I think what people need to realize is, and I've learned this mainly from YouTube, because I've had so much criticism for my videos, so much from proper engineers, proper music engineers. People need to realize that you're not asking the question, do I sound right? Is this right? What you're asking the question is, do I like what I am hearing? It doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. There is no right and wrong. You want a little bit more gray, put a little bit more gray on. A little bit more yellow, do yellow. It's all colors that you can paint with, metaphorically speaking. Don't limit yourself. Don't go around saying, is this the correct tone? Because that's what I feel like people do.
Yeah, but that's also one of the topic that I kind of started on YouTube when I mentioned sort of like criticizing some other social media people. And I'm saying social media people because I was not exactly talking about YouTubers. There's a lot of stuff on social media happening today, and a lot of
so many different
big
places,
companies. Yeah, and a lot of big companies are actually selling their products over some people who, they play Wonderful Tonight on Instagram. They have thousands and millions of followers, and they're not even playing in the video. We don't even know how it's recorded. You're listening on a shitty phone, on a shitty phone speaker, and you are making a buying decision. And if I come out and say that that's not the best kind of conditions for making a purchasing decision, I never mentioned, like, especially the people who responded to my video, which were, by the way, cool about everything. They do this kind of thing where you can get some value out of the video, because that's exactly the thing. We all hear different. And now we're coming to the topic of YouTube and the fact, like, imagine this. I was thinking about this the other day. Hi-fi people have a huge problem when they have to demonstrate some kind of equipment, some kind of gear, because how can you listen to hi-fi speakers, right? How can you translate this over YouTube? So you end up having an entire community in the hi-fi world, which is a crazy community.
Yes.
Don't just don't go that audiophile rabbit hole. But what I'm just trying to say,
I imagine I'm on their dartboard.
You got your face as the bullseye.
I said a few times in my videos, they're the only community that's worse than the guitar player community when it comes to like egotistical screaming in the comments, But back to the story. The whole point is that in the audiophile community, when they do some kind of demonstration of a certain piece of gear, you never listen to it. You just trust the YouTuber that you're watching, and you're getting some kind of value out of that video based on some kind of information. And he's telling you they're looking at specifications, they're looking at build quality, they're looking at this and this and that. Where when it comes to YouTube videos for like in the guitar world, we are kind of used to listening to people play. And when you listen to people play, you can hear a lot of different things. Some people play better than others. Some people are simply musicians, some active musicians. It is a huge problem. When I used to play before, I could play. For me, guitar playing is a huge problem nowadays, because I grab the guitar once in a week. And when I have to make a YouTube video, when I have to record something and noodle, it is a problem. Like, honestly, it's a problem for me, because I don't get to warm up. I don't have my muscle memory. I didn't practice for a long time. And then there are people who play absolutely awesome because they're active guitar players. And when you listen to something that you like what you hear, the music that you like what you hear, it sells, which is yet again great. And then you get into the audio engineering and the audio production stuff, where realistically, when I was mentioning those channels that responded to my video, what a lot of those channels do is they offer you some kind of a sound that kind of has a reference point, where they're recording the sound with an SM57. They are not doing any kind of additional post-processing, at least they say. For sure, they don't do any kind of additional post-processing. And then you can be like, all right, I know what an SM57 sounds like, and then I can sort of reference this sound. It sounds like this. But then when you go a little bit deeper into the topic, if you're an audio engineer, you know that not a single 57 sounds the same. You don't know their cabinet. You know, at least something you get from them, that every time they're recording the same setup. So when they set up a different amplifier or a different pedal, you're getting something. Where there are a lot of YouTube channels who do like really good production. A lot of these guys became so good at mixing, and they make stuff sound great. But the problem then is that a lot of the things actually, you know, everything they make sounds great. When you buy that certain pedal or amplifier,
I think really you sort of answered my question here. So what I found that I do is I have certain YouTube channels that I've come to know so well that I can tell whether I'm going to like gear. For example, that pedal show, and people are probably sick of me talking about them, but if Dan really likes something, I know I'm going to like it because my taste is similar to his. And so I can tell by his reaction to a piece of gear, or even by the way that he plays and by the way that he's interacting with it.
How into it he gets.
You know, if he's digging in or if he's using dynamics or whatever, I can tell what that pedal's going to be like in my rig because I've watched him for so long. So I know, because the tones he searches for generally are going to be ones that are pleasing to me. Do you know what I mean? Or if he's getting loads of dynamics in it, and he's picking light, picking heavy, I know that I will too, because I tend to like what he likes, type thing. But whereas Nick completely not, because he's on another level of playing brilliance. I hit the way that he plays is the exact opposite. Strat can't do it. I like to anchor my hand. So like I know Dan anchors his hand on his guitar. You can see the wear on red where he plays, and Mick does the whole like Hendrix type thing. I couldn't play anything like that. It's way too complex. The chords are, I'm just not that type of player. So if Mick likes something, generally I'm probably not going to get on with that. And I can trust that because the amount of time that I've watched them, they can add outboard gear. You know, they've just gone analog for all of their post-processing. All that stuff is all gone analog, but it's still them too, and I can still tell what their reactions are. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I had the opportunity to meet them. They're great.
Oh yeah.
Dan and Mick. But yeah, what you're actually seeing now, that you have essentially bonded with a certain type of presentation by a certain person, and we've been watching them for 10 years. And now you actually know, and based on that, you can make a buying decision. But realistically, you can't do that with a lot of channels. And I'm not saying, and I never said it in any of my videos, and what you just said just a moment ago, I said that in my video. It's like, I'm just laying it out that these are the problems, and you do whatever you want with these problems. But if I said that, you know, 57s don't sound the same, if they're using like additional equalization and post-processing in videos, you should just know about that. Do with the information whatever you want. I'm not saying that you should not trust a YouTuber. That's your decision to make. If you like Dan, that's great. Maybe I like Mick. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, exactly
fine. But people are ready to you know, comment about this and, you know, fight about these things. And
I just don't know why.
even YouTubers, the way how they responded to the whole thing was, I mean, they were cool and everything, and that you know, that's absolutely great. But I felt like these guys are doing something they make great content. They were actually the only YouTubers that I kind of follow, but I felt a little bit weird because I didn't want to make them feel bad in any way. I just wanted to lay out some information for people so they know about stuff. Mostly when you're watching that Instagram guy with 1 million followers who asks a lot of money for his video to make a reel, you know, because obviously some insider information about these things from people, from builders who wanted to work with them. And it's like, when you watch this stuff, it's like, this is like thousands of euros for a video. Yeah, and then when you look at such a video, you're like, you're not getting any value from this video, realistic value. This is only going to trick people into believing that this certain thing sounds a certain way, where the reality is they don't really know nothing about audio in general. They don't know what they're hearing, and it's not a realistic presentation of a certain piece of gear. What I would prefer, because it's like the part where, all right, Marko, now you're full of shit. You're saying all this stuff. How would you do it? You know, I would just be a little bit more realistic. For example, nobody talks about build quality for amplifiers, for example, and also a lot of pedals. Nobody talks about serviceability, which is a thing that I'm probably going to be making videos. I'm probably going to be making videos about this thing, because I think we're going back to serviceability. You know why? Because the world is going to shit. And we are going to have to repair stuff. We will not be able to throw away things anymore like we did back, you know, like what was happening in the last 15 years. And a lot of people have made a bunch of shitty equipment.
It's about
I had
about that 100-year cycle. We're right around the time for it. So
you're right. Yeah, exactly. You know, I had, and as I'm not sponsored by any company, and that's why, you know, I'm sort of doing my kind of business, because I don't want to be sponsored. I don't want to be in a position that I don't have to, that I have to sort of be quiet about certain things, which is something that is realistic, which is something that happens. If you ever worked in any kind of company, that's how it works, you know.
NDAs.
I'm just laying it. Yeah, for sure. I had 5 marshals, new marshals, in the last month, in a small city in fucking Serbia. All right. Shit. Why?
That's people a statistically significant amount.
That we are talking about different problems with these marshals. One of them was a mod, was one of these. It was a good one, modern vintage series. Was it modern vintage or something like the vintage series, the new one?
Yeah.
The guy wanted the plexi style mod. It was more like a super lead, and I sort of modded it to super bass because it kind of sounds pokey as the super lead. Now, obviously, you're going to get the 1,000 comments about how it sounds amazing because they're trying to justify their purchase. But if you ever played the real Plexi Marshall, you know, like it's not the same. All right. So
I built the black flag and then changed it to I upped the caps because exactly that was a little bit stabby for me.
Yeah. Now, what I'm just saying, I'm not saying that it is bad sounding or good sounding, because you can definitely make it sound good. There's no question 100%. About that. But that one was actually good. I have to be super honest about the whole thing, that the newest Marshalls that came, they were a little bit better when it came to build quality. The PCB was better. The components were a little bit better. But my God, in the last 25 years, what Marshall has made, starting off with all these JCM 2000 TSL, DSL, and all that kind of stuff, it is a disaster. The wiring, the PCBs, they're using, you know, ceramic capacitors for coupling caps, you know, on the plates, which is like the cheapest way. How, like, why? You know, that's.
I think the new owners,
you know, I can say it.
Yeah, I saw that happen with a lot of different companies where the ownership would change and they would cost cut, you know. And Gibson. I mean, Gibson was notorious. Really? I mean, there are certain years of Gibson that I just automatically know there's going to be issues that I'm going to either see. If they haven't been fixed already, I know I'm going to see them when I work on them. Like truss rod nuts that were sounded through. Oh yeah,
there's good guitars and bad guitars from, but I know what you mean. People are going to go back to not chucking stuff away, and quality is going to matter, definitely. Yeah, that's it.
It's hard to repair some of the. It's hard to repair some of these things. It is tedious work. It costs a lot of money, and people buy a 500 euro, 600, 700 euro amplifier, which is one of these like more affordable. It's fancy to say, like the cheap shit, you know, that comes, you know, a lot of these amps, they're really happy, but then it breaks because the problem is you bought a 500 euro amplifier and the tubes for it are like 200 euros. Or when you want to buy them, if you're not the company, you know, when you want to go to Tube Amp Doctor, any kind of, since I'm in Europe, we do Tube Amp Doctor or whatever. And then people are surprised that it costs money, and it almost costs like the entire amplifier. You know, and they break, unfortunately, frequently. And the worst part about it, that the most cases that you have with these amplifiers are some kind of intermittent noises, which are absolute bullshit to diagnose, and it costs a lot of money for people to repair them. For me, it's a huge problem, to find such a problem, and I want to kind of repair it and make the people happy. But then again, I don't have the entire day to lose and a full bottle of freeze spray searching for that one noise that happens.
That one trace that's just intermittently, a lot of it was manufacturing defect too. That's what we found in the amp shop I used to work out of. Is there were certain models we'd start seeing them, and after a while we were like, oh, this is a bad batch of circuit boards, to the point where you just turned them away. You're like, no, this is going to cost more than you're willing to spend, and I'm doing us both a favor.
So I think I would agree that we all want vintage amplifiers that are nice and easy to work on.
Yeah, like really big open components where you can see everything.
Apart from a magnetone, a magnetone or a Filmo sound, they'll give you nightmares if you look inside them. Let me tell
you. It's cheaper to work on them for the people who buy them.
Buy them, it is.
I finish my work in 15 minutes. I'm happy. I get my hard-earned money. They're happy because the repair for that amplifier was far cheaper than for that Marshall, for which I always have to desolder half of the things. Not with the Marshalls, Engels do, you have to desolder, but with the Marshall, you have to take off the tubes and 55 screws just to take the PCB out to make one solder joint. So you would find this weird component or whatever. You need to test something. There is no piece of electronic gear which is going to tell you to find that little open resistor which looks completely normal, which is in the switching circuit and just makes a noise sometimes, and you lost like 20% of the wattage. It is super hard to diagnose these things. And but back in the day, people were building equipment, and it was completely normal when you build a piece of gear, and I'm talking about hi-fi gear and stuff, like everything had a service manual. You had an exact instruction how you're supposed to do this, how you're supposed to repair it, how you're supposed to do the troubleshooting and everything. Today it's like everybody's hiding the schematic. All right, so you guys are hiding the plexi schematic, and you figured out that you can lower the voltage on the screen voltage, and now you're hiding that schematic, and nobody can repair your fucking equipment. So that is the problem. You know what I mean? So that is just my philosophy. It's just like, come on. Make fucking service manuals. Make documentation. That's what I want to see from a company. I want to see quality builds. I don't want you to make. I also said I remember now. I said in the Mesa Boogie rectifier video. I mean, you guys know. You're old enough. Yeah. Oh yeah, the old ones, but the new ones. All right, so you wanna save some time and money, so you put you also put the power tubes on the same PCB and stuff like this. Okay, I'll buy you the old one, because the old ones go for less than 2,000 euros, and you made an amplifier that's built, worse for 4,000 euros. You know what I mean? So like if you say that publicly, then
some repair guys won't touch them. Will not touch a new boogie because of the
most
hassle.
of them. They don't. You can't charge for this because you're gonna waste a lot of money. And the worst part of being like somebody who repairs stuff, is that you're always kind of risking that you can fuck something up further. No matter how experienced you are, sometimes you can make a mistake. Obviously, I made my fair share of mistakes for sure, and I'm sure that I'm going to make them. But, no matter how experienced you are, stuff sometimes happens. People bring you equipment that has been played for 6, 7, 10 years, never opened. You opened it inside. It's an absolute mess. And then a tube fails on your desk. You know what I mean? And then somebody's going to tell you that you have to pay for it. I mean, exactly. These are like realistic situations with pieces of gear which are not really built to standard and unrealistically presented to people. I'm just saying that, I'm not saying that, for sure, for that price point, That is that piece of gear. But if you make a 4,000 euro amplifier, I expect it to be made well. You know.
Same here.
But
not unreasonable.
But it's kind of a problem. But it's kind of a problem because we talked about so many things now regarding sound, regarding pedals, regarding these amplifiers. And we talked about the fact when I mentioned the nitrocellulose lacquer. You have the situation where people are assigning the blame or thinking that a certain thing in the whole chain is responsible for the fact that you are in a completely different room, that your cabinet is on the floor, or, for example, it's not on the floor. There are so many different things that change the sound, and you are assigning the problem to the nitrocellulose lacquer. And what I don't like about a lot of YouTube presentations is that they indulge in that. Most guitar YouTube videos indulge in that bullshit, and you can rarely see someone who is honest about these things. They just continue talking about the nitrocellulose lacquer like it's the 90s, like you have magazines, like basically all the myths and all the bullshit, like now we know it, like people know it. Nobody's saying it.
I think I don't know whether I'm one of them people that indulge it, but I point out the obvious elephant in the room is that it's all psychosomatic. So I am 100%, I prefer nitrocellulose lacquer, but that's because I've told myself that. And I'm self-aware enough to know.
I prefer the tactile feel of it. Is what I like about it, because when you touch it and you're playing,
I even paint it on pedals. Even on pedals, and I feel like the pedal sounds better. It has no effect on the tone whatsoever. But for me, because I look at it and like, I know it's got it on there, and I like how it looks. It makes me feel good, and if I feel good, then I play a little bit better. If I play a little bit better, ipso facto, the sound coming out is better. So it sounds better because of the way it makes me feel. Nothing to do with the physical item. Do you know what I mean? But I'm self-aware enough to know that.
Absolutely right. You are 100% right about everything what you said now. I absolutely agree. And I just want to fill in just one very quick thing. Not for a second have I said now, with all the things that I have just said, not for a second have I said that it doesn't make a difference. Everything makes a difference. If you think that nitrocellulose lacquer on a guitar doesn't make a difference, then that's fine. Yet again, it's fine for you if it doesn't make a difference for you. Listening is complicated. Listening is a lot about experience. You train how to search for things. You train how to listen for things. You cannot comment on, and that's again a realistic thing, which is maybe something that we should mention on the podcast, which is, it takes time and experience to understand these things. I didn't know them. I was not born clever, or I was not born like knowing these things. And I'm probably not right about a lot of the things that I mention sometimes, but you need experience with big tube amps to comment on big tube amps. You need to build 100 pedals and then you comment on pedals. Exactly. You've never played a pedal, you've never played a tube amp, and you're telling me the Kemper is better.
Yeah.
The keyboard warriors are very, very numerous out there, for sure.
But even the comments don't matter. The problem is that normal people who never comment and who never indulge in any kind of conversations like this, they don't have a lot of time. People are working, they're doing their job, they're gigging, they need a piece of gear, and they're getting the wrong information. Yeah. And a lot of people buy wrong stuff, and then when they come home, they come to the studio. Like my best friend is a producer. He's got a studio right over here. Most of the big bands, like whoever was playing great music, comes over there. I spend a lot of time with these guys. They've got great rooms, great amplifiers. We test stuff all the time. So many times people heard something sound great and were completely underwhelmed when they actually bought it, because sometimes you can't try it. You have to ship it. You have to do this or do that. No, nobody's talking about these things. That's why I kind of made some of these videos, and I said some of the things that I actually said. It was not to, shit on any company or any particular YouTuber or any of the people. It's just like, all right, so what can we do? Let's educate ourselves. Let's just do a little bit of education about something. Let's just be reasonable about these things, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that scares them the most, is that if we started talking about it, then a lot of the myths and the stuff that they pay people to tell you and keep propagated would disappear, and we'd actually start paying attention to like what fits our needs rather than what fits their pocketbook's needs.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, please, you go. I'll go ahead.
I was just going to say what I think it is, see, I've never been one to hold information in, because in the Navy, if I train someone to do something who's a lower rank than me, I no longer have to do that thing, because I will make them do the thing. And that means I can do less. So I'm all about developing people and giving them the information. And it's the same with guitar. But I find that a lot of people want to hold all the information and not let anyone discuss this sort of thing. Trying to, for example, make them feel bad, like, oh, don't open that amplifier because there's voltage in there that can kill you. That's one of the things that I get a lot. Oh, if you don't know what you're doing, it's dangerous. You'll kill yourself. Don't go in there. Like, well, hang on a minute. You don't know anything about me. I work with 700.
He works with 750 volts constantly
on a daily basis. Yeah. You know what I mean? This amplifier is child's play compared to what I normally work with. So, yeah, but they're like, oh no, you don't know the thing. Don't you dare look inside, because it's almost like they'll lose the information. I mean, I got a lot. One of the other podcasts we did, I think it might have been like 2 or 3 podcasts ago, I mentioned that I got a guy on board into building amplifiers. So he bought a couple of kits. Then he designed a few himself, and he whatever. And in one sitting, I seen him get a belt off the filter caps 4 times.
Oh,
he forgot to discharge them 4 separate occasions in the same sitting. Insane. He was building a Marshall as well, so it's not a small amp.
As soon as you said that, I'm looking over at my pull-off resistor array that I have on top of this amp. I'm getting ready to work on. I'm like,
2 times he took the end off a screwdriver. And I got people message me going, you shouldn't say that on the internet. People will think it's okay to go inside. Like, no. I never said it's okay. I warn people that it's dangerous, but I watched someone get 4 belts in one sitting, and they're not dead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not saying to people, go and stick your fingers in, because this can happen to you. But it's like,
how do you think I get my
the best hair on the internet?
Yes.
But it's like people want to shoot the conversation down in case you disseminate too much information.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did a video where I relic this guitar. So I don't know anything about relicing. I mean, I've learned a little bit, but I relic this guitar. I beat it up, did all the checking and stuff, and I filmed it all. And I had people message me saying, you shouldn't really be putting that stuff out there because you know, some people make a living from doing this sort of thing. Like, well, first of all, thank you for confirming that I'm doing it the way that everyone in the big boys are doing it. Thanks very much. But also, so what? Let people do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You still have to do 1,000 of them before you become someone good. Or, you know, no one's doing that. So I don't understand it. I think if we all put more information out there, everyone becomes more educated, and we can start having better conversations, and that'll make us all get further. It's bad.
Yeah. If you think about it, you know, it is absolutely normal that I just read a comment, Lance Lucifer. I got a 90s PV Classic 100 head that's been in every bar and only dropped a few times. PCB build and still running like a champ. Yeah, some amplifiers, I never said, I'm not trying to justify what I said, but yeah, PCB built amplifiers can last a long time. They can be absolutely great if they're done well. They can be much better than point-to-point amplifiers. You can do a lot of things with like really good PCBs. But realistically, when you want to save money on PCBs, then we're getting into the problems, and that were the problems that we were actually discussing earlier on. But I want to go back to the whole thing where we mentioned, you know, companies are going to make money. Companies are working. They have their own problems. I've been working in one. You know, I know how it works, and it is completely normal for them that they are searching for different ways how to increase revenue. They're searching for different ways how they can, you know, simply make more money, sell more, and pay their, you know, resolve their problems and pay the people who work for them, and so on and so on. But you know, that doesn't kind of stop us from you know, having a discussion about it, which is absolutely not, you know, shooting at someone particularly,
Yeah.
but it's like, can we educate ourselves? And what you mentioned actually about this, the fact like that it feels like that they're kind of hiding information, like don't do this, don't do that. It's sort of started at some point, like I would say it's an American thing, because we don't have that, especially not in the Balkans. All right, we don't have special protective equipment, goggles, and stuff like this. We don't have, like for sure, protective equipment is great. Do not touch 500 volts. Yeah, the problem is that at some point somebody sued somebody.
Oh yeah, litigation.
And then because it's a
like
completely different system.
Payouts for somebody's stupidity, and you're supposed to be protected from yourself. That's the nanny state that we live in. I 100% agree. And it became a money-making machine in and of itself too. So.
Exactly. I saw that when I was working on the cruise ship, because like with every other company, like with everything in the world, you get documentation, you get a paper, and like this is how you approach these reparations. If I have to go and repair the radar, this is the procedure. You can read the procedure, you have to follow the procedure. The only problem is that it's not actually a problem, but European procedures are far shorter than American procedures, because I saw the American procedure. American procedures are like, you've got all these stupid steps accounted for because somebody sued somebody because of somebody's stupidity. Actually, what you just mentioned, where sometimes it's like, yeah, you're working with 500 volts. Be careful. It should be normal, like, okay, you can get killed. Yeah, we're going to write.
Yeah, I'm finding that's coming over to the military, believe it or not. So we had, in the last, I think, I want to say 2 years ago, we had a guy almost kill himself on a radar, funnily enough, and get a massive shock, because we have these thing called job information cards. So you usually print it out or whatever, and it's like a step-by-step idiot's guide of step 1, open your toolbox. Step 2, check there's no 500 volts going to stab you in the face, whatever, that sort of thing. And this guy was in a rush, probably wanting to go out, get back down and mess and have a few drinks after his watch or whatever it is. And he printed this job information card out, but left one of the pages on the printer. And that page said, remove the fuses. And he didn't. And he trapped himself in between the control panel and a bulkhead, a wall, basically. And he was bouncing off the wall back into the panel, bouncing on the wall. And he almost died. And so the Navy were like, we can't have that. Right. Now, no one's allowed to print these job information cards out in case someone leaves a page on a printer. Like, so what's the alternative? I have to read this fucking thing and then remember it. For when the job could be 5 decks away. It could be a 4-day job, and you want me to read it and then go and remember it, rather than print it out and just say, put something out in the world that says, don't be a dick, take all the pages off the printer. It's like the world's just, the knee-jerk reaction is to go over safety, right? No one prints anything out in case you don't print it all. And you make this silly mistake. Like, how's about we just say this was a silly mistake? Don't do that.
Don't do this again.
Yeah.
Like have a sign over the printer that reminds you, have you got all the pages?
Yeah. It's just like,
don't be this guy. And, have a picture of the guy bouncing back and forth in between the lines, says, don't be this guy. Have you got all the pages? We used to learn by people's examples of how not to do things. Yeah. We didn't reward stupidity by saying, okay, nobody can do anything anymore because one person might screw it up.
It's like the grown-ups got up and left. But
Sorry, I'm a Gen Xer, it's my rant.
The problem with us is no one's coming to save you. As you know yourself, one shouldn't be.
You're on
no one's standing up to fix the thing that you can't fix. It's all on you. So shut up and get it done.
No, I absolutely agree on everything. It's like we are, and I sound like an old person, and I'm not old, but I'm younger than you two guys. And
you're an old soul, is what it is. you can see things for how they are. From
no one might have my hair like that, mate.
Exactly. I mean,
fantastic.
No, but really, we are breeding a generation of morons. Honestly, it's like, I know exactly what you're talking about. We had the same thing on the cruise ship, like procedures, lockout, tag out, and this, and signature this.
Okay.
It took me far longer to get the fucking signatures, and I made like 10 kilometers on the ship instead of going and doing it. I understand some of these procedures are important and they're great, but sometimes it's absolute bullshit. And you know what? I don't know if it's if such information is available, but I would really like to know the statistics if this actually helped.
Well,
okay.
I
So
guess
that's another point that I was going to bring
in
up.
my case, it definitely didn't, because people will missteps and break
Yeah.
other things. Maybe not harm anyone, but they will, forget to tighten something up, which then works loose and ruins blades on a fan or something like that. That happens all the time.
And that's after they did the change where nobody's able to take the printouts, because now you can't have the information there, so you're stuck with your poor
introducing
memory.
new problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was something.
For me,
something Mike Rowe from. Are you familiar with Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs? Mike, he's got a podcast now. He famous in the States, was on the Discovery Channel, but he talked about how they had these accidents, like where some of their crew almost died filming like one of their episodes, and it was because they had done these safety things so many times that it became numbing. They had so many steps that it was just going through the motions and not even really thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, okay. It's like you get lulled into a false sense of security and you don't even pay attention anymore. And so it's just like one of those things. Is like they said, hey, maybe we shouldn't be going through the same routine thing all the time, and like doing 500 steps. Maybe we should like go to the important steps. Let's check this. This is important. Let's check that. That's important. But do we have this, that? So
you see it all the time, especially in the Navy, because we're like a really old organization. And my pet hate from anyone, I'll join a new ship and they'll have processes in place that are just retarded, for lack of a better word. It is just ridiculously stupid to do all of this extra paperwork to get this one thing done. And I'll say, why are we doing all this extra stuff? And they'll have files of like boxes of paperwork to prove that a job was done 6 years ago or something. I'd be like, why are we keeping all this? And the answer that I cannot stand is, we've always done that, Chief. All right. Oh, so we used to like have no electricity and like candles. We always did that. Should we go back to that? No, we shouldn't. Why can't we just innovate?
Hoist the sails, turn off the engines. Let's go full mast.
But it's the same attitude that you get from people who are just like so defeatist, and that's what it's like. Oh, I can't do it. You can't do it, or you don't want to, and I'm like, no, I can't do it, Chief. Can't get it off. Or I just can't fix this thing. I just can't undo this screw. Name your thing. And my old boss used to laugh at me because I'd say to them, if I got your wife, daughter, son, mum, granddad, dog, sat them in a chair and put a 9 mil in their mouth and said, get it off now, would you be able to do it? And they're like, well, of course, Chief. Like, well, go and do it then. Stop what you're doing and just go and achieve the thing. No one's coming to help. And I think that problem is now permeating so far that it's become the norm. And now I'm seen as the grumpy old chief as opposed to the normal person, and they're like slacking type thing. So we have, I'm now in the engineering school. I'm in HR. Heaven forbid why they put me there. I don't know. The friendliest guy in the world. So I've got like these 60 sailors who work for me, and it's things like, turn up for work with you, haven't had a shave. That's my main thing in the minute. Telling people off for not shaving. Fantastic. But they brought this guy from university in to teach us all about this new generation of people. Is it Gen X? Is it?
No.
Anyway,
I'm Gen X.
What's the new Gen Z?
Whatever they are. They're lost. The lost generation.
So I've got an 18-year-old boy. So I'm quite, I'm up on what the kids are up to these days. But anyway, this guy comes in and he starts telling us about how these different people react to certain situations and how we have to tailor our leadership style to them. And he goes through this whole thing. Have you ever had someone shoot at you? What? Have you ever had a missile coming in to kill you? They don't go any slower. You do your job or you don't do your job. And it's a pass or fail. There's no in between. Yeah. And he's like, oh, well, that's not really how they work. Well, then they're not going to work in the military because the missiles don't go slower because you're a different generation. You just have to do the same
Oh,
thing.
they get really fast today.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
actually going a lot faster.
I saw it. I saw it in the news. Yeah.
Well, it's beyond
Guys,
that.
can we do like Joe Rogan piss break? I like
yeah,
the
totally, man.
conversation is great.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to go to the
absolutely,
toilet.
mate.
No,
Just give me a
we do
second.
it all the time. It's we're a long format, so we're used to somebody having to
All
tap
right.
out every now and then.
Be right back.
Let's look at some of the chat too while we're.
Yeah, mate. I tell you what, I've been really bad at this. Let me see. Blue. Oh man, you lot would love working in the NHS. I tell you what, mate. I had an operation yesterday. They cut a lump out, and them guys don't half do some work. Let me tell you, Jesus, hard-working fellows. But yeah, I can imagine the processes. I just know dropped me
Paperwork after paperwork after paperwork.
I signed my name 15 times with the same answers underneath. No, I don't have any prior conditions or whatever. Probably 15 times before this off.
Well,
yes, I understand that.
What's horrible about that, man, is like they got this long list, and then there's one in there that if you just get used to checking like the same box all the time, they'll throw you off. If you check that box, you suddenly have said that the exact opposite of what you wanted to say is true, and you're like, whoa.
I want to donate a kidney.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave Barry says he's got a Blues Junior and the Tracers on the board, lift with heat. Yeah,
yes.
There's someone who does an aftermarket board for them. Is it Psionic Audio?
I'm not sure about on that end. I know that there's one of the was it Mojo? In the place in North Carolina here that did a lot of like replacement boards for fenders and stuff like that.
I want to say Psionic Audio did his own boards for the Blues Junior. For that reason, it's a known fact.
Mm-hmm.
Although,
yeah, and it's only on certain manufacturing origins too. It's like there's Blues Juniors that were made in the U.S. There's Blues Juniors that were made in Mexico, and then there's ones that were made in China. I think there's even ones in Indonesia too. So,
what's the other small fender amp? Not a Blues Junior and not a Champ. What's the other, the one that's produced today?
The tube amp that you're talking about.
Yeah, so not a Blues Junior. There's less controls on it. That's produced there. It's not like a Princeton or anything. It's like a newer amp. Oh my god, they sound unreal. Oh my god. Right, I'm gonna have to Google this, otherwise it'll absolutely.
Hot Rod. The
no, that's a bigger amp. It's more. I think it's a 15 watt. Pro Junior. That's the one. So them amps, the new Pro Juniors, sound so good. If they had a boutique badge on, for example, if they had like an Italian sounding name badge with a nice leatherette on it and stuff, they'd be going for thousands, mate. The sound of them, and you plug that thing into a bigger speaker. Oh man,
yeah. I love a low watt amp driving a big speaker cabinet.
Yeah. There's a guitar store by me in the next city along in Southampton, and I popped in, and the guy actually said to me, "Oh, why didn't you try this Pro Junior amp? It just looks like a little tweed combo or whatever." He said the new ones are surprising. And my lord, it had some bite to it, like it was nice. Anyway, I would probably go with that over the Blues Junior. Now I know that's probably sacrilege to some people.
Well, the US made Blues Juniors, they go for a pretty penny when you can find them. Yeah, when you can find them.
There you go, Dave Barry. The Pro Junior is a go-to for mic'd up on stage. Fair play. I think I would, if I was going to play a gig now. So on board, I have my 40 watt Victory head, the DP40 or V40, whatever it is, with a 10-inch JBL speaker cab, and that will hang with anything for sound wise, like what have you. Even on board, it'll fill a hanger, no problem. Anyway, moving on from amplifiers. Where were we?
I actually only once I was in Victory amp, the Kraken somebody had, but the first version.
Oh, that's like the super high gain.
Yeah, it's kind of gainy. Sounded good. I don't know. I don't want to look too like not impressed, but I'm surrounded by a lot of amplifiers, so for me it's not a big deal,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's at some point when you do these things, I guess you kind of stop following the whole gear thing. Realistically, I don't really watch these amplifiers. I rarely look at the new amps. Realistically,
Yeah.
they all kind of sound the same. Pretty much everybody's trying to emulate the one sound, and you're kind of making the same things with, with a little bit of a different polish, a little bit of a different quality, and a little bit of a different price. But there's not a
Yeah.
lot of new stuff happening,
Mhm.
realistically. I mean,
I prefer the old amps. I just I can't, mate. I much prefer old. In fact, I'll let me just. I've got my. I always talk about this amp. This is my latest. Oh, sound down.
oh, Showman, yeah.
Yeah, so this belonged to Alan Rogan, who was the Who's tech, and also like a Filmo sound. Then old amps, and they're just that's what I want to mess with, as opposed to the newer stuff.
It is absolutely great. I've got
Are
quite
you
a few
muted in one of your channels, Marko, when you came back?
muted.
Yeah, it sounds like your mic's
No.
down.
Okay, wait. Just give me a second because the only thing that I have changed is echo cancellation.
There you go. That's back. Now I can hear you.
Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm totally into vintage tube amps, and I've got a few. What I had to do when I sort of started out is basically because I had no money, I had to figure out how would I get some good tone, with not a lot of money. So all the stuff that I bought, essentially, I would buy some kind of a piece of shit or something that was sent here to Eastern Europe, and then I would start making it. I tried to make it work, and that's essentially how I started building pedals and modding the amps and building amps and stuff like that. Now I've got like really, really nice amplifiers, but I'm looking at this. I've got my Fender Super Twin now in my room, and a Super Twin is one of those amplifiers that sometimes you can get for dirt cheap. They're always like in combo form, although mine is packed up in the head because it was ridiculously heavy. But the Super Twin is an amplifier which doesn't really sound great, as a lot of people would say. And I remember when I tried that amp, it was really like glassy. It's that 70s Fender thing where you've got the silver faces, they have a certain tone. That tone is in many ways great because it is a tone of an era, and some people have been using this tone. So if you're into this, that's absolutely great. But what can happen is that with knowledge, you can actually mod such an amplifier, and you can make it sound absolutely ridiculously amazing because it is a cheap amp, but it has the same transformers like the other ones. Pretty much, the same components. You just rearrange them a little bit and buy a resistor here and there and a capacitor, and you can, change a few values with not a lot of, mystery. You can make it sound absolutely great. And
yeah, some of the best amps in the studios that I've played in were modded supers.
So, what year is it, mate?
75, I think, if I remember correctly. That was 75.
It was the Super I wanted when I got the Showman. I was on the lookout. My buddy out in the Netherlands, Olaf, has got he bought one like I think it was the late 60s Super, and I was just like, I want that because they're like 20 odd. Are they 20 odd watts? Are they into four speakers?
No, I actually we're talking about a completely different amplifier, and I'm just searching for a picture now, and I will show it to you in a second because I have this option, so you can see yourselves, and you can see this stuff.
Okay.
All right, so this is a Super Twin, although the one that I have is actually a Super Twin
the silver
reverb.
Yeah, you get the Super Twin reverb silver face.
It's not a silver face. It's actually just like this one. So it's a black face, but it's from 70 whatever I just said.
Because the one that I was thinking of originally was like the Evil Twin. Do you remember them? With the red knobs.
With the red knobs, yeah.
That's something completely different.
Yeah.
But for example, this one, the Super Twin, it is from the Silverface era, although it's not Silverface, it's Blackface. But it's like
that
that
is
thing.
rarely seen. Okay.
Is that before they did
Yeah.
the linear, the ultra linear output transformer?
No, that is originally an ultra linear transformer, and by the way, people, you can switch over from ultra linear to the regular thing with a few soldering. So and I actually got it on this amplifier. I've got it on a Switch because I wanted to put it on a Switch because all right, now I want to hear the difference. Even though, okay, if we are realistic, that kind of a comparison doesn't really make sense because an ultra linear amplifier is a thing. And a standard, how would you call it in English? What? So the ultra, what is the standard?
Push pull, is it?
No. Both of them are push pull. I have it in my mind. I forgot it. Maybe somebody can fill me up in the comments. So like the standard way that you would build amplifiers with, where the screen is not actually connected to these taps on the transformer. Rather, the screen would either have its original supply or it would have the supply tapped off through a choke or a resistor. That's the standard configuration that we have, the Marshalls and Fenders and all that stuff. It sounds different. It sounds slightly different when you switch the knob. And such a difference, I may have made a video on that, one of the early ones, which were like really badly produced and the sound was not that good, like early days. But I might go back to that whole thing, but you would be surprised because the difference is not huge at all. And the problem is that a lot of people, yet again, because of the myths on the internet, they would say that the silver faces, sounded shit because of that ultra linear thing, which is exactly not why they sounded shit, or whatever way that people, people dislike them for the certain glassiness and shrillness. There is one capacitor.
Yeah, it was capacitor
master
choice.
Volume.
That was the thing. It's like a capacitor choice is the only difference. So.
Yeah, and the worst part is that most people didn't really play them. They would introduce the master volume knob, which is a thing that deserves a video on its own, a master volume knob with Fender amplifiers, because it's something that should not exist. It took me like 8 years to find that out, but it's weird how when you want to get that Fender sound, it has been my experience that a master volume knob should not exist. You should always use the volume or the gain, like the one that's early in the circuit. Whenever you introduce some kind of attenuation, like the classic one, pre-phase inverter, like the one that you have on the Silverface, it darkens the amplifier in a way, and it kind of loses its Fenderiness. And that is the reason why, I'm pretty sure that is the reason why when they made the Silverface, they wanted to introduce the master volume, but then they figured out, it takes off a tad of this something, that shimmer that happens in the high end. So let's reintroduce it by using a treble bleed, or this, how do you call it, the capacitor that's on the volume knob. Like it would be a treble bleed in a guitar. It would be just like I just forgot.
It's a high pass filter, is it?
Like absolutely, yeah. But and then you have it variable on the volume knob, and what people, why they dislike the Silverface is because when you would use the master volume knob, the amplifier will be too bright because you essentially have a treble bleed on your volume knob. So if you take this treble bleed off, or even better, if you turn the amplifier all the way to 10 and use that gain, it sounds much better. But then again, it doesn't sound like the Blackface. There are different reasons why you can make it, but with a few mods, you can make it sound absolutely amazing. And it's not the ultra linear thing. The ultra linear thing actually is quite interesting because it makes the amplifier. It has been my experience. It makes the amplifier a little bit softer. It loses its aggressiveness that you would get with the standard configuration. It doesn't lose aggressiveness. It's just a little bit softer, a little bit less of the presency thing, but in many ways really, really, really good. And it is a flavor. But when you put it on a Switch and you've got like one position ultra linear, the other position is the classic circuit, and you do that, you realize like, who gives a fuck about this difference? You know, it's like there are so many things about this amplifier that are great. It's like it works well either in ultralinear or in the other configuration. It doesn't really matter. The big thing about ultralinear, I know I'm going on a tangent, but that's the problem with me. I'm going to do that on my channel.
Hey,
this is interesting, mate.
That's the place for tangents, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The big problem with ultralinear happens when you crank the amplifier up. Fenders are okay because you're going to usually play them clean. And if you play an amplifier such as this Super Twin Reverb, which is 180 watts clean,
Wow.
you're not going to push it really hard. It's absolutely fine. But why did the Marshall Majors fail? Why don't we have Marshall Majors anymore? Because most of them actually burned down. It is because basically when you overdrive the power section, which is completely normal for a Marshall, but if the power section is ultralinear, the currents that kind of happen are weird, and those amplifiers tend to become unstable and tend to fail more frequently than the standard configuration of power amplifier that we used to use. Tube amps are actually quite we use all this audio equipment in such a weird way because we constantly overdrive it, distort it, and we do all these kinds of things. And we absolutely abuse it, and that's where the real shit happens. That's completely normal. But the problem is that certain configurations were not meant for this, and sometimes when you overdrive certain circuits, then you would get a lot of weird currents flowing. Stuff can happen, and stuff can overheat, and depending on type of stress, depending on type of circuit and component, something fails, then you get a failed amplifier. That's why ultralinear amplifiers are not popular in the guitar world, because they tend to fail if you overdrive the power section. On the other hand, if you're making a clean power section, it's a great choice. I totally recommend it. And I'm planning on designing one amplifier that would feature that just for the flavor,
just for the total cleanness of it. Yeah.
I wonder how many people have heard it in the same context that you have, because to change that, you're changing wires on a transformer to bring it in and out. So how many people have actually A-B'd that actual sound? Do you know what I mean?
For sure, not many. Not many. Yeah. I guess
it's not on that switch across the
and especially not on the same amplifier. You might have heard people A/B from two different amplifiers, but on the same amp circuit with everything else being equal except for the wiring. Then, that's.
This is why I know that the blue molded caps in the 1964 Showman make so much difference. So when I got that, it was full of orange drops. So I recorded the amp, played whatever, and I used the TC Electronic wiretap, so it was the same recording. And then I changed all the caps for blue molded ones. I paid $30 per cap, which I know the internet hates me for, but I don't care. I really don't. I wasn't expecting it to be such a dramatic change, but what I wanted was that I know that the blue molded caps are inside it, so it's as original as possible. That's what I wanted. And I changed them all and played it, and it was less aggressive, much less, to the point where I chopped the clips up next to each other. So you have a 5-second clip before, 5-second clip before with the neck caps, and over and over and over. And it was palpable, definitely different.
Yeah, listen, about the ultralinear, I've got the amplifier here, and I've got the entire setup. I can play guitar, through the stream. But to be perfectly honest, I don't think that you would even hear any difference. I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't hear any difference. You can't hear this stuff over YouTube. Audio perception is very different on whatever you're listening to and over YouTube, and when it goes through all the processing that I'm doing, and whatever is YouTube doing and all that kind of stuff. If you really want to listen to how amplifiers sound, you have to listen to them in context, and you have to listen to them loud in a room. And then when actually, you can understand some of the things that we are discussing right here now. So we're not talking about Kempers. We are talking about treble boosters and Fender amplifiers. And to listen and experience that, you need to get the full experience. And it's very important to listen to it in context, in a band, because that completely changes the picture. When you've got other instruments, when all the masking starts happening, when your natural compressors actually kick in your ears, then you're like, oh, this amplifier actually sounds good in a band, or there's nothing I can do to make this amplifier sound good in the band because that
also,
happens. That's the reality.
You play different. I found that. I mean, I only played in my ship's band. There was nothing like whatever. But because I'm excited and I'm playing with a band, I'm digging in way more. And the normal setup I'd use, I was getting way too much like mushy distortion out of it because I was digging in, and it was just there weren't the headroom there. You play when I was playing on my own, I was like, if play softly or whatever, this bit it's nice and clean and whatever, and you dig in and it like jump out. But in a band, I was like giving it beans because I was so excited. John Pardo has just said there's a Super Twin for sale in Reverb here in the UK for less than 700 quid. And it's
buy it.
180 watts. Oh my God. I bet you someone snaps that up. And if not, I'm going to be looking at it when I come off this stream.
No, if you break that price down, so you're getting an amplifier, which is a vintage amplifier, and you are getting essentially 6 power tubes, and I don't know how many of these small 12AXM plus. This one has one of those. Oh my God! I actually forgot. It's a weird amplifier because for the reverb, you've got that one. You've got that one tube that has like half a pentode and half a triode. Plus, you have this one 6C10 or something like this, which is a triple triode, which is a very rare tube nowadays that you can find, which I absolutely removed from the amplifier because it failed. One of the triodes failed, and then you have to buy a 200 euro tube or something like that, to make it work. So I just, as part of my modifications, I could spare one triode and remove it. It has some kind of weird equalizer and some distortion. The amplifier is horrible. I mean, it's okay if you play it like clean. You use it only for clean, and usually it was, as far as I read, and as far as I read on the forums, okay, as much as that information is relevant, but people would say that lap steel players used to use that amplifier, which I would completely understand because I would say that for lap steel, that amplifier would be ridiculously amazing. High headroom, very loud, glass, everything.
But you're getting the transformers. That's the main thing. I built a what's that on there? A train wreck rocket, and it cost me over £1,500 for the parts. Do you know what I mean? So if you could buy
you
that,
ever plugged your soldering iron in and put a thing together once.
Yeah, you've got the transformers. You could strip that down and build yourself anything you like, as long as it takes.
People, we're exploiting a business over here, so you can go and buy a £700 Super Twin reverb, and then you can break it down into parts, and you can earn more money. You can sell it over eBay. The parts, I mean, So
yeah.
But realistically, when you
and have it,
for sure. But realistically, you can make that amplifier actually sound absolutely amazing because essentially it is very, very similar to the ones that you actually want to hear. You just have to remove the stupid distortion circuit and do a few tweaks and. So, but in general, what I did on this one, since we are speaking about that amplifier. Today, I plugged it in for the first time after probably a year. It is a completely redesigned power section. It is something that's completely different because most of my amplifiers are actually quite different. Because I had the free time in my life, I would completely redesign them. I always wanted to find something new to at least try and make something new because you can always make it a Fender circuit. You can always make it a Marshall circuit. But then I'm like, all right, what if I do this, even though it doesn't make sense and maybe it's not economical, but it's going to have a flavor. And I always wanted to make it unique in some way. So this amplifier actually, now I remember that it has I created that amp to have a driver section power amp. And it's like a class AB2 amplifier. So I don't know if you guys know, but and people who are listening, usually what we play are AB1 amps, and to get like in class AB2 amplifier, you would need like more, like just the ability to swing more on the grids, on the power tubes, and therefore you would get a little bit of a different flavor. And I think this one utilizes a 12AU7 for the driver. Now, I say I think because there's so many things in my head. I have the schematics, I have all the documentation, everything that I did. But it's like, I have this project, I do it, and then I leave it, I move on, But most of the amplifiers Yeah, most of the amplifiers that I've done, all of them that I have are completely modded, and a lot of them feature a lot of these. Like I just tried to add a little bit of a different flavor. Does it sound good? I think it sounds good. Is it better than everything else? No, it's fucking the same. Like it's good as everything else. You know, you can make it sound good for sure. It's not gonna make a bad sound, but if you don't know how to set it up, it's not gonna work. You know. So.
But not only that, though, I think you gain more than just the sound. You gain the experience and the knowledge of having done the mod or having rebuilt the thing, and that is invaluable.
Absolutely,
to me,
absolutely.
And that's why, John, you should absolutely go and buy that amp, and then you should try and mod it, and maybe send me some pictures, and we'll talk through it together, or do something like this on a video call. And why not? It's so much better than just paying £1,000 for the standard off the shelf amplifier that you're gonna, maybe trade in a couple of months or whatever. Get the knowledge, get the experience.
I love looking for things like that in any kind of instrument, something that you can, pick up for about half of what, the going rate for the.
John has just put in an offer.
Fantastic, mate. I tell you what, if you're thinking about doing it, sorry, John, if you're thinking about doing this, mate, and doing any mods to it, maybe we could do it as a live stream. And me and John.
Reach out. I'll show you what I did.
Oh, there's a new episode inbound there. Definitely.
There you go.
That would be fantastic. But I try and stay away from amplifiers because I mean, I've built loads of them and I like modding them, but because I can never sell them for the money that it's cost me to get the good parts to make an amplifier. Do you know what I mean? There's just no way I could charge the amount of money to make it worth the time and effort, because it's a lot of time. And
I mean, like I absolutely understand that. That's why I have a lot of people here in the region who come to me and they want to buy pedals that I built. They want me to build them an amplifier, stuff like that. I don't do that, and I don't do that precisely for that reason, because I just invest too much time and money in these things. They're special to me, which is, I think, the most important thing about all gear, that it's special to you, not to me, not to anybody else. It needs to be special to you. And the fact that I made some of these mods to my amplifiers, like, it's great. It's just made it mine, nothing else, like maybe it's going to sound great, but it's like, it's just made it mine. It's an interesting thing. I think the mods that I did are interesting, but it's unique in some way. And I think that that's I think that's the most beautiful things about that's the most beautiful thing about what we are doing now, what we're discussing now, what we do on our YouTube channels, and the entire DIY story, everything that we are talking about here. The most beautiful thing about that is that you find yourself on a very interesting journey, which is fun. You learn how to do things. You end up actually playing with your creation, which is like, we're like kids, absolutely like kids, which is the most beautiful thing about the whole, people who go around and buy stuff. It's great. There are some people who are absolutely not interested in that, and that's absolutely legitimate. You go and buy gear, find what you like. Who cares? But this is just another way where, I feel like what I actually imagine, what I want to do with my YouTube channel and with the course and with whatever I'm doing on the Slightly Technical Academy is something that I want to introduce people to a certain way of actually achieving a little bit of happiness, because not all of us are professional musicians. Not all of us live out of, playing music, but it is a phenomenal hobby. If you want to build pedals, if you want to mod amplifiers, after work, you come back home, you work on something, you work on a project of yours, you're going to be a happier and more complete person. You learn something. Like it's about the journey. In the end, I made all these amplifiers. I don't play them because I don't have time. I wish I had. I was making them for, and jokes aside, I'm starting to work on some projects, starting to produce some stuff. And coming back to the whole audio thing, which I was doing more before I actually went on board, but I want to use that gear. It was made to be used. But in the end, even if you don't use it, like, it's super fun, learning about these circuits, tweaking it, as you said, like changing all these caps, buying all this stuff. If you want to buy the vintage ones, if you want to buy the modern components, if you want to hear the differences, if you want to do hacks, like, you can always go and buy vintage components, or you can, I don't know, wire a film capacitor with a electrolytic capacitor to achieve some kind of sonic difference for dirt cheap money. You know what I mean? Like, you can like people do this kind of stuff because electrolytics don't sound good. Then you use like 10 times smaller, approximately 10 times smaller film capacitor. You wire it in parallel with the electrolytic one. Yeah, it sounds different. In some ways, it sounds better. Maybe you achieve that exact same thing that you would potentially achieve with that vintage component. But on the other hand, what you're talking about, what you mentioned with the vintage components, the vintage caps, I know that for sure. Yeah, you take some of these amps, you change out these capacitors, and it kind of loses some high end, but in a very good way. That's the most professional way how to I can explain it.
I think it makes more difference in amps than it does in pedals. And this is coming from a guy who makes a living off building vintage components into my pedals, because that's my thing, tag board and all of that. But because of the voltages involved and the current, all of that stuff, that's why I would never, ever, ever even consider leaving a Sprague Black Beauty or a Bumblebee cap inside. Like, I've got a Gibson GA5T. Them caps had to come out, because they just drift.
They explode.
They don't handle
they literally physically explode at a certain point in their life. I've got a whole graveyard of them.
Yeah. But if you're asking me if I owned a vintage Les Paul, would I be taking the tone cap out because it's a Black Beauty?
Oh, no.
No, I would not, because it doesn't live in the same, realm. It would still work fine.
It doesn't see the same kind of like voltages and currents.
Exactly.
Temperature.
Although, I will say, then, blue molded caps, of all the ones I've used, I've never found a bad one. I've never come across an amplifier with a bad one in, or bought them offline, because I test everything, and had one that was out of spec at all. So I've seen, obviously, Uncle Doug and people like that find bad caps or what have you, but I've never come across one myself. Sorry, mate, when you were talking before about gear, I'm dying to ask, have you got a piece of gear that is like that one thing with sentimental value, that it'd be like, the house is on fire, you run back in for it?
I just need to make sure that the house never goes on fire. Like that's no. Sometimes I think about these things.
Trying to carry like 4 amps.
You know what I mean? Is there like one piece of gear that's like the one?
It's actually a very hard question because of many reasons. Since I made all the stuff and like modded, I somehow, I brought all these things to life. It's the same question, but in all honesty, it's the same question if you would ask someone to choose between their children. It's kind of weird, but they really like worked so much on each and every one of these amps.
Just for the record, I'm picking my 6-year-old daughter. way less hassle. Sorry,
the older
my 18-year-old will be watching this. So Oliver, if you're watching, just so you know, I haven't chose you, mate. Dippers.
yeah. But if I would have to, I do have certain like weird preferences in gear, because at some point in my life, I was obviously practicing guitar a lot. I was playing in bands, and I was young, and I was totally into that kind of stuff. But then, since I was studying, got my university degree. Alongside that, I was doing a lot of these things, and obviously started working. And at some point, I was like really honest with myself, and I had this conversation where I kind of, decided that I will never be Guthrie Govan. I will just not, and I kind of admitted that whole thing to myself. And then I figured out, all right, so, but what can you do? Can you maybe, are there some other things that you can work on to, to improve on? I ended up kind of not being a guitar player anymore. I like a lot of, I do a lot of synths and sound design. This is stuff that I didn't do on the channel, and I like production and all these things. I kind of look at different pieces of gear that all of them have their place. I love my Marshall. It's a Marshall. I love the Fender because it's a Fender. I love the Sound City because it's like, a high watt type of circuit. I love the Angle because it's different. But if I had to choose some gear, I would choose the absolute weirdest ones. For example, this PRS 513 behind me, it's like a shitty modern guitar. That guitar, that's something that's, take a look at it. So this is not a typical guitar, all right? This is a model that would usually be played by somebody who plays in cover bands, people playing weddings, all right? So this is the anti-stoner guitar, all right? So I decide to play stoner stuff on this one. I kind of, it's tuned in D. And the problem with this electronics is that they patented this design. It is I'm going to make a video on this whole thing, but this guitar is, it was super muddy because the pickups are very highly inductive. Therefore, you lose a lot of frequencies when you use a normal cable. And it was kind of weird. It always sounds produced, it never sounded raw. So I figured out, all right, what I'm going to do. So I designed the new electronics for it. Now I did the second iteration about which I want to make the video. So this is like a different piece of gear. And I always want to, use something different. And if I would have to choose one of the amplifiers, I would choose my Sound City, because that one is the most unique. I would say, because it's like in 68 Sound City, which it's a Mark III, and it was modded into a DR103 high watt, which is one of my favorite amps, a thing that I wanted, since forever, like my favorite circuit, one of the versions, right, of the high watt,
especially for stoner stuff.
Internals ever.
Sorry.
The best looking internals of an amplifier ever, like a vintage high watt.
Yeah,
the R103.
Yeah, and
they're just beautiful.
And yeah, and the Sound Cities were actually like high watts that were assembled with legs instead of hands. They were not up to the standard like the high watts, but essentially it's the same chassis, pretty much the same transformers, pretty much the same everything.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just take a second to respond to a comment?
Yes.
So Sonic Assassin says, maybe it's my American sensibility, but you're going to lose viewers using the R word. Let me be clear, right? I'm a 22-year done sailor, and I'm modifying my language to not say the C-bomb, because I had an American work for me who found that really offensive. I mean nothing by my language. And also, my little sister is severely, and I do mean very severely, mentally disabled. I use this language because it's just a word. Words are just words. They're not offensive. It's just a word. And if I can talk about this sort of thing with my little sister and my family who've been through so much, I'll use this word on my own podcast. And if you find that offensive, maybe you shouldn't be watching a 22-year done sailor talk about gear. I don't do the offense thing. We're in here to have fun and talk about our toys. No,
absolutely.
Exactly.
I think that everybody became a little bit too sensitive. In Serbia, we don't give a fuck about those things. We say that R word. Now I actually realize what the R word is.
Yeah,
sometimes
well, I say my little sister. She's actually adopted, but her mum was a drug addict, and she's severely damaged because of it. And we've been through so much with it. I literally have no time for when people try and take offense for things, because I've lived with this stuff. And plus I'm a sailor. My job's to go and die when the king says so. It's something like a word is really not a thing for me. I can't. And if that means that we lose lose followers.
Don't
and
say
people
Rick
don't
and
buy my
Baker.
gear.
Yeah, don't say Rick and
Yeah.
Baker. That's the R word.
I tell you what, I really
Unless it's
don't
a
like
bass.
their necks.
No,
And
no, unless it's a bass. You can say Rickenbacker bass all day. Just
the
don't say
internet's going to hate me
Rickenbacker
for it,
12
but
string.
a narrow neck is never a good thing, and Rickenbacker necks are just too narrow. It's a fact.
I don't
Yeah,
like the
that
fact
kind of
that
happens.
they lacquer the fingerboard. I hate the feel
I
of a
don't understand
Rickenbacker
it.
fingerboard. It never made sense to me. Like,
So when I first started playing guitar, when I first joined the Navy, Rickenbacker had just released this weird 12 string where it has like headstock as like sort of tuners going one way, 3 aside, and
Mhm.
tuners going the other way, 3 aside.
Yep.
And I wanted that guitar so bad, but I would have hated it if I got it because I hate them necks. But it was like, I don't know, $6,000 or something, maybe.
yeah, they're expensive. That's why so many people were faking them. I mean, did you see the Fakenbachers that were going around?
Yeah.
Bacon.
Randy says the R word is getting taken back by the people that it affects the most. Is the R word Randy?
Well, I feel Randy every now and then, but you know.
Twin truss rods are alien to me. Is that Rickenbacker?
Yeah, Rickenbacker's twin truss rods too. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like I've seen them with like twisted necks because people didn't understand how to balance it out. And
do you think the truss rod makes a difference to the sound of a guitar as opposed to just straightening the neck? For example, if I was to put carbon fiber rods in there, or does it make a difference to the sound other than just having the neck a certain way, if you know what I mean? The adjustability.
So yes, it can, and a lot of it has to do with how the truss rod's installed too. You know, I've had guitars that had all kinds of issues that were because the truss rod was improperly installed at the factory, and it was causing vibrations and dead spots. So yes, truss rods can make a huge difference if they're done improperly. If they're done properly, then everything should be good. But it's one of those things that cheaper guitars get wrong all the time.
Makes sense. Yeah. I'm terrible with guitar setup and stuff like that. I just can't. I don't know. I kind of like set in and leave it. I'm not one for tweaking it. I'm not very good at it. Yeah. So sorry. Anyway, I cut you off there, Marko. Anyway.
No. I mean, it's great that you know. It kind of reminded me of one thing. We're sort of jumping off. Sorry, folks. Like from like capacitors over guitars, and then we're getting back to the YouTube hate and the whole thing. So if you've been from the beginning of the podcast, then you've heard the story where I've been all around the world and on the cruise ship and that kind of stuff. And when you go and travel, then you meet a lot of people, and you realize that people are very similar and very different in many different ways, depending on where they're from. And it's all like very, very interesting. One thing that, since my audience is mostly American, one thing that happens actually when you say some of these things, a lot of people comment on such a thing, where in Serbia, you'd be bitch slapped for commenting like this. And I'm absolutely honest about that. Sometimes people should realize that people come from different places, and we don't mean bad. And if I say something, sometimes I say a certain word, it's not my native language, and sometimes you make a mistake, but it's not even about insulting. I feel like everybody is super, super sensitive now, and in my country, people are not sensitive.
We went through like a big programming stage to get us there. I remember when it happened, where I would be like having kids say, "You can't say that. You can't say that word," and it's like, what? I can't say the word stupid. Like that was a stupid idea. And they're like, you can't say stupid anymore. It's like,
the word you're
bad
looking
word.
The word you were looking for that you're not allowed to say is digital amplification.
You can't say.
Although I really want to say to them Wazer headphones. Now that we're talking about it, I do want to say to them.
It's probably interesting, yeah. I had a little bit of a period where I kind of struggled with the channel and some of the stuff because it's totally new to me, because you read a lot of these comments, and a lot of the comments, there were some like really bad comments, but realistically, in all the time that I've been doing this, I've never had a constructive critique. If you go over all the comments, and there's like thousands of comments now, there was never a constructive, reasonable critique saying, all right, you're full of shit because of that, and that. It is just some kind of crying about some things.
I've had some really good things, like suggestions. Like if you ever work with Vero board, what I do to mark out the holes, for example, is I'll count across, put a red dot on it, and then go from the back and hollow out that hole. But someone was saying, why don't you just like reverse the image on your phone, and then you can just draw it on the back without having it? Great. I couldn't do it because I'm too stupid to be able to figure it out. But that was like something that wasn't just you're doing it wrong, you're stupid. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's like somebody offers like a suggestion. Like anytime that I like commented on your videos, I was always like, yeah, this might cause problems because of this, and you were like, oh, I never even thought about that. It wasn't I'm saying you're stupid. I'm saying in my experience, like I saw this cause horrible problems, so just be forewarned.
You've destroyed my use of super glue on
exactly
on those things inside the pedal now, mate, because you mentioned that it's corrosive.
But yeah,
I've had some things, but a lot of the time I get stupid things like I made a pedal that was, what was the artist that I did? I forget who. Anyway, Gary Clark Jr. I did a pedal trying to get his sound, and someone wrote on there as a comment, "I hate Gary Clark Jr." Like, brilliant.
Whatever,
okay.
Whatever, dude. Hate.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment.
No, but I want to tell you why I wanted to bring that up. It's not because I want to talk about these comments, because realistically, bad comments are 0.1%. 99.9 comments are super great, and as you said, like sometimes really cool, really constructive, really supportive, and it's really interesting. Like you've got this contrast. But what I saw with a lot of other YouTubers do, which is something that I will not do, and I will start. Like, I kind of stop myself from being too Serbian about things. Tell people to fuck off about things. Just. And I saw a lot of these YouTubers who are doing honest work, and they're, presenting amplifiers, whatever. They're trying to keep everybody happy in the comments. They're trying, they're defending themselves. They're trying to justify this and justify that. Make your own YouTube channel if you think that you should do that better than me or anybody. It's kind of disrespectful. I don't understand why people do that. I never made such a comment. I never thought that I was eligible to do such a thing to another person. You know what I mean? And
the reason why they're doing that, I think, is because the people have the power to do a ban on your channel. They'll just they'll just totally. And if that's your way of making your living, they'll report you, and then suddenly your income's gone. So these people are in this weird position of having to satisfy everyone and not ruffle any feathers, so nobody gets strikes on their channel and gets demonetized.
Makes you wonder how someone like Joe Rogan's still going.
He's not on YouTube. He told YouTube to fuck off and went to Rumble.
Well, no, he still puts out videos.
Yeah, but he only puts out little clips. He's not giving the full podcast. You can only get that on Spotify.
No, he's back. He's back. He's been on Spotify. He's back since a year. Yeah.
He's back on YouTube full time.
Yeah,
fully back.
I didn't realize.
I don't get them notified. All I get is the JRE clips.
Yeah, I get both really. I watch the clips and then see if I'm going to like the guest.
Joe Rogan is big. He can fight that battle. What can we do with a few?
Well, he still has had to go and scrub his archives of all kinds of things because of stuff that people said that were completely out of context.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you're interviewing people because he has no set agenda, right? Or we're all into guitars. That's our North Star, if you like. So I think for him, someone could literally say anything.
Oh yeah, and they could just have a conversation about it.
But this is what I mean. There's nothing about guitar that should have that reaction. You know, we're talking about like Brian Wampler when he was on the show. He said, "We're just all talking about our toys. We just want to be happy and play with our toys.
Play with our toys."
Exactly.
Exactly.
I love that line. And in fact, that's just reminded me. You know, when you're talking about people complaining about you basically saying you can be misled by the sound on a YouTube video. Have you watched the Brian Wampler episode where he takes you through how guitar companies are lying to you, and he plays the same pedal with different IRs for speakers and says, look, and now I'm optimizing it for metal. He doesn't change anything else, changes the IR and plays like a different riff, and it's essentially a different pedal. And he's just saying, I can make this pedal do anything on YouTube. Don't believe what you're hearing type thing.
Yeah.
So he's actually made that video already. And he did it brilliantly, by the way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's always like with everything. You've got the big companies, you've got people like Brian and some of the smaller pedal companies who are. I mean, he's not really a small pedal company if you look at it some kind of, depending on the perspective, right? But still, you know, they do their thing. I'm pretty sure that he is sick of certain pedals that he's been, you know, people have been asking him to make. You know, I'm 100% sure that he would do something different for sure.
But I don't think he wanted to build the Tumnus.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. But you know, you get to a point where you're like, all right, so you know, we are running a business. I've got employees. I have to handle this. You either handle it or you don't handle it. And people are unreasonable when they're expecting these people to behave in a certain way. Like they've got a business to run. They have to behave in a certain way because that's reasonable and that's normal. You know, that's how, you know, stuff works. It's just, you know, that's what it's just completely normal. But a lot of people are really unreasonable on YouTube. And when I saw some of these YouTubers, you know, doing some of these comment responses and literally being always like nice to a lot of these people who are complete assholes. And we can use A word, R word. I don't give a fuck, you know, what kind of word we're supposed to use for them. But it's like, you know, do you think that's okay? Like smaller channels, we read all these comments and then, you know, I get a notification from someone, you know, saying some things and it's like, you know, so what? I mean, at some point you stop caring about that. And I'm really close to there. Like, I don't give a fuck about these comments anymore. There is something that I got on my last video, which is something that I actually want to ask you guys. And I want to ask the community. I will read the comment for you. I got it, I think, yesterday. All right, so take a look at this. What I did was I made this video for this little thing. It is a stupid little device which I call the Pretender, and it's basically a inductor from wah pedal with a rotary switch and some capacitors and a resistor, which are of certain values. And I use it for reamping. I kind of figure out that would be a good idea to kind of simulate, you know, what the pickup does, because the reamping stuff doesn't really sound that good. So I made a video about it, and I put I made a nice PDF, like a build guide with like wiring, schematic, everything, and I put it for like, I don't know, like $3 or something, like coffee money, you know, on my website. And then I get a comment, and I'm absolutely honest about this. I want to be fully transparent. That's why I'm asking a question. So I get this comment. When I saw that you are changing money for the schematic, you lost a lot of my respect. That is considered douchebaggery on a high level in the DIY community. Jack Orman shared his design for free. And just to make it clear, this is not a Jack Orman design. It is a bit different. And I honestly didn't know about the Jack Orman. Later on, I went to the Musique and I saw that he actually has it. But yes, you know, somehow I missed it. And my question is,
I use as well the Jack Orman.
No, it's absolutely great. But my question is it douchebaggery? Because, all right, I want to know, because I'll put that stuff for free. But then again, we all kind of have to live from something, and we don't make a fortune out of these things. You have to kind of charge for something. Like, do you charge for the stuff that I do? Nobody wants to talk about these things, and a lot of YouTubers have to justify that.
Can I ask you a question?
These people, yeah.
Has anyone bought it?
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, that video.
Do you think
that video didn't? Say again, please.
Do you think then people have gone, oh no, I bought this thing that I wanted, and they feel upset about it, or do you think they paid for it because they thought that it was a fair transaction? I think that they're rather happy. So
yeah, I think they're rather happy because you get something, you get a little build guide, you get the values that you need. If you know everything about circuits, it's quite simple. You can actually calculate it by yourself. It's a simple, RLC circuit. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird because I thought about this.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of designs, and I was thinking about doing some kind of, you always think of, like, what can I offer to the people? What can I do? Like some kind of interesting YouTube content. But, you also think about, all right, can I somehow make a little bit of, money of something just to keep me kind of going?
Well, and to that point, like, you're not just, copying and pasting what Jack Orman did and throwing it up there as if it was your work and selling. That would be the douchebaggery move. Like, if you took somebody else's hard work, you did all the hard work yourself, you drew it out, you put the guide together. I mean, that's what people charge for every day. So, I could say, like, if I took like what somebody else did and just like scrubbed their name or their watermark off of it and then put my name on it, then that's thievery, like, because they did all the work. But these circuits, it's not like we're reinventing the wheel every time either. It's like a lot of times things fall into place for a reason because they work, whether you came up with it on your own or whether somebody else came up with it on their own, it still falls into place the same way. So trying to say that anyone has the right to release it for free or to charge for it, it's all based off of what they do with it. Like, you created a product around basic information, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the great thing.
Got some interesting points here. So Randy says he was bummed that it wasn't free and he didn't buy it, but he does love your stuff, which is great, because
thank you, Randy.
I'm bummed that I'll never be able to afford a Joey Landreth 2 Rock. It should be $3,000 and at about 6. So I'll never be able to afford that, and I won't buy one. Doesn't mean I don't love it. And this is what I was thinking too, Dave. Dave Barry says that Waylon McPherson has a similar video with a paid link to a similar sort of circuit, and this is the one that I've seen as well. So to me, this is the way I think about it. It's worth.
I didn't even see his video. He has probably something yet again, something different, because it honestly came from.
So you wouldn't have seen the design anyway, unless you
paid for it.
Yeah. But what I mean is, though, things are worth what people are willing to pay. That is the acid test on whether, and if people have bought it, has anyone got back to you and said that they've implemented it, or is anyone like?
Well, not yet, because I think that the video it came out a few days ago, and
all right, okay.
Weirdly enough, it didn't do that well, because it's like under 1,000 views, and in some videos I would have a lot more. I mean, YouTube is a stupid game, and I kind of don't want to play it anymore, because it's really stupid, making stupid thumbnails and stupid. And I have to say the word, sorry, but it's the S word,
it's
or
so
the R word. It is absolutely retarded, to do these things. But somehow, when you do a YouTube video, you invest a lot of time and work in making this YouTube video, and then 250 people see it, and then you have to make another one, and another. I love the process, but then you have to make another one, and yet another one, and yet another one, and you have to be motivated, So what I'm just saying, like, we all play this kind of game. we do different times that, you know, we post, we make thumbnails, we make funny names. I've been exploring all the different ways how I can improve what I'm doing, so it kind of reaches more people, because the more people it reaches, it's not only for like personal gain, like, oh, I'm gonna make money or I'm gonna have more subscribers. It's like, all right, so I'm reaching actually out to a community. I'm gonna get feedback. It's gonna be more interesting. I'm gonna make more interesting videos. So it's kind of natural that all YouTubers do it. But it's also like, I do want to maintain being like honest, truthful, and you know, I just want to be like this on the YouTube thing. And that's why I'm gonna start doing lives and like this kind of podcast thing where it's like long form. We're gonna talk about stuff. You know, we're gonna talk about stuff. We can talk about whatever you want. I'm gonna talk about like Bill Burr. I'm gonna talk about anything to myself. I'm gonna read the news and read the schematics and say a lot of shit, because I want it to be that way. I don't want to be the guy making scripts and pretending and some, you know, saying something that, you know, doesn't happen, doesn't exist, or you know, it's just a weird game. And then I actually wanted to ask you about this comment, because I don't know, the DIY community rules. I'm new, I'm young, what am I, millennial or
I think I think the DIY community rules, but there are no rules in the DIY community. Because you're doing it yourself. If anybody tells you there's rules for doing it yourself, they're lying.
Yeah, I get. Look at
Fuck
this.
you! I won't do what you tell me.
Oh yeah.
Offer accepted. Road trip to South Wales next weekend. Oh,
amazing.
John, what have we done?
Super nice.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, speaking.
Joe's froze.
We've lost Joe.
There he is.
I went just as I was congratulating John on his new amp. Congratulations, mate. That's epic. Yeah.
Let's do something with the Super Twin. If you know, when you get to modding it and stuff, I'll give you some input. I have to look up the schematic, and I think it's a horrible schematic where I was, you know, just drawing over something. You know what I mean? Only I will be able to read it, you know, but I would have to, you know.
I've had to redraw a few of my own little scribbles like that, where it's like, only I can decipher that. If anybody else is going to make this circuit, I better redraw it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so one of the guys who bought a pedal from me, Jimmy Smith, he's normally on podcasts actually. He has done a few of my pedals like in proper drawings, like real layouts, as opposed to the way that I draw them, Joe age 5, like on a screwed up bit of paper on my pocket or whatever. And it seems so weird to me to see my designs in that sort of format, because it's really not what I'm down with. You want to see some of the state of the stuff that I've drew out, like terrific.
I guess I was born under the double Virgo star.
So you're very organized and very, very meticulous. Yeah. I know people with that same star.
Pretty much most of the stuff that I've been working on so far it's kind of weird, because you don't do I'm new to this whole thing, but I'm not exactly new. I'm new to YouTube and presenting these things, but I have a bunch of schematics and documentation, which I was building throughout the years. And I'm really super lucky that I actually made documentation for absolutely everything that I was doing. And that's also another thing, like when you mentioned, you know, scribbles and software and stuff like that. I do everything in software. And that is also a part of the course that I was supposed to. We've been talking about a lot of things. I wanted to talk a little bit about the course, and that course about the Big Muff is full of that stuff where, you know, there's a lot of open source software which is available to us all, which we can use, and everybody can learn it. And it's super, super easy, like maintaining documentation, like even drawing schematics. There's like free stuff to learn. Even the, you know, building Vero boards or, Vero board, strip board is Is that the same? Vero boards is the one.
I've heard it interchanged, but like I think strip board is what a lot of people call Vero board, where there's like a strip that just goes along where you have to break contacts in between things. I think of Vero board as just like having holes in it.
Okay.
And no pads, no strips or anything. But
no, but there is also
I've been using
it's kind of different. I kind of get confused by the whole thing, but I'm just opening this since I was talking about some of these softwares. Like, let me just share the screen with you now. You see it? All right. So you've got the DIY layout creator, which is, by the way,
he went full screen with you there. Okay.
There you go. That's a bit easier.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So here we've got these Vero boards. All right. Or these are eyelets boards, right? Boards. So you've got a lot of different types of boards, right? This is what I would consider a Vero board without this eyelet thing.
Yeah, without the eyelet. Eyelet board is Vero with a pad.
Yeah.
And then there's
there's the perf board. Exactly. Yeah. So there's this one. So there's the perf board, which is a little bit different. And obviously we've got a lot of different types of boards, but like the Vero board is the DIY community's most favorite one, right? And this software that I'm just using now, I don't know, probably you guys know it, but maybe some of the viewers, it's called DIY Layout Creator. It's free, basically. Just donate to the guy. By the way, the guy is, I think, from my country because of his name. But I don't know him. Maybe I send him an email to reach out because I don't know the guy, but that's a phenomenal piece of software, which is absolutely free, where you can do wirings and stuff. And for example, in the course, I do dedicated lessons for this software. Who likes to watch it, they can watch it. It's also because the course is essentially for beginners, but whoever knows stuff, there's a lot of it's from beginners to advanced. It's ridiculously, full of stuff. And this is one of the things where you can actually learn how to build stuff by yourself or modify it. You can always go and find stuff on the internet. But yeah, the software is great in organizing whenever you're working DIY stuff. I think it's paramount because you lose that stuff so quickly. You lose the ideas. You lose the, I forgot what I have in my Fender amp. Like it's an amp that it's I see it every day, but I forgot. Therefore, I have a schematic always written. Everything must be written because otherwise you go crazy when you start doing this.
Yeah. But even things that you do every day, you still get out. Like I've worked on the same class of warship for last 22 years, the same bits of kit. And if I'm doing a job, I will still get the drawing out and still get the procedures out, and I'll still follow them and check it all against the drawing one by one. Even though I know these bits of kit better than I know my kids because I spend more time with them, throughout the years, you would always refer back to it and you'll have that forever. That's what I like about these sorts of videos. And this is another reason why I got into the whole YouTube thing, is to have the documentation. So I had to get, funnily enough, I had a guy who worked for me on my last ship. His nickname's Chicken. I won't say his real name in case he doesn't want to be known on the internet, but he could not answer questions. So we have to get qualified, you have to get stuff signed off. So we come and say, can I get my fridge plant drawing signed off? I'd ask him a question about it, and he just would not be able to get his words out because the pressure would get to him or whatever, and he just could not handle it. And then one day he come up to me and he said, Chief, can I have fridges signed off? I said, yeah, mate, okay, I'm going to ask you questions though. And he put his phone down in front of me and pressed play. And he had a video that had like this music on or whatever. And it was just him. And he goes, hey, Chief, I'm going to take you through the fridge plant. And he goes up to the fridge and he goes, this here is the compressor. There's 4 of them. You change them over this way. This valve does this. Follow this line round. It goes to this. And he starts going through the whole plant. And then he said to me, can I have it signed off then, Chief? Like, absolutely you can. And also, now in the future when you're revising for any boards or maybe you forget, you can just open this up and press play again. You've got YouTube in your pocket on your phone. And I thought that's brilliant. And that was just as I started doing YouTube videos because I was like, well, this seems great. Maybe I could do that.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal. You know, the fact that we can. I mean, look at this. We're doing a live podcast
in 3 different
talking about
countries.
This that in 3 different countries all
3
around
different
the world.
continents,
Like
actually. Yeah, almost.
almost, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is absolutely crazy, and it's funny how YouTube got actually fold. It downloaded the DIY layout creator. There you
Dave
go.
Barry, I need to know how you get on with that, mate. I really wish there was a phone app version because I don't think I can muster myself to use my computer.
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
I can't.
that is
I can't do any of that kind of stuff on a phone, man. I want a bigger screen. It's bad enough on my laptop trying to
like
see
I said,
little
mate,
tiny pads.
Every YouTube video I've ever made has been on my phone. Everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the only thing I
it
do
is
on
so
my...
interesting.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just so interesting that you, and don't get me wrong, like in your age, you have adapted to the phone in such a way where I'm like the last generation of people who actually had a childhood without a phone, you know, because all the generations after me were like completely ruined. Like we actually went outside and played.
How old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I don't mind at all. I'm just thinking, I think this year is going to be 32.
So you're like a year older.
You're
the same age as my wife.
Yep.
And she doesn't remember the time when everyone didn't have mobile phones. Like
born in 93.
Right? She's born in 93.
Yeah, there you go. So for me, for example, it's also like maybe it's because I've got big hands or something. Like I hate the phone. I have the biggest phone that you could possibly find. Like, look at this piece of crap. You know,
it's like trying to carry a tablet
huge.
around.
Exactly. Like most people don't have the pocket, you know, for this type of phone. I can't do anything on the phone, and I'm totally a PC guy, obviously because of the background and programming and that kind of stuff. But I couldn't edit. I tried a few times in CapCut, you know, editing, you know, even with this phone, you get this little pencil, which really helps with that stuff. If you want to do like precise cuts, which like
that's what I use. Me S Pen.
There you go.
But you know what it is? This fits in your overalls pocket. So I don't allocate time to do, because YouTube is massive. Like it could be a full-time job. I don't have the time for that. The only time I have for YouTube is traveling places, breaks in work, or if I was on board the ship, it'd be like, I'm going to sit down for a cup of tea. I'll do 5 seconds of editing, or to do it now if I'm just out and about doing something with the kids. 5 seconds of editing here and there, because I haven't got the time. I'm working 2 jobs, you know, I'm full-time military. I'm doing this thing as well as YouTube. There's no time for that. I can't break out my laptop all them times, but I can whip my phone out my pocket, do 5 seconds of editing, put it back away, and just keep going and going and going.
Yeah. Now, as far as
for
designing, like with the software, I'm saying like there's no way I could like keep up with where I was on a circuit board with some of the circuits that I make on the screen size. Just like, you know, like there'd be half the circuit over here, and I'd be forgetting. It's like, oh no, it's off screen. So
yeah, but realistically, it is a problem with complex things, especially with circuit boards where you have a lot of small, you know, traces, components, and stuff like this. It is not really reasonable to work on a phone with that. Yes, you can zoom in, but there is a lot of zooming in. And realistically, if you want to be productive in anything, you need to, you know, for at least for that job, you need to sit in front of a PC and do it properly.
Yeah,
you need the conditions to work.
I would love to outsource it. I hate editing so bad.
Well, no, we're not talking about editing. We're talking about designing a circuit on that.
But I think people outsource that too. Like
they do.
I think I would outsource it to Simon JSA Effects. He's
really good at that. I mean, the layouts that he's done are amazing.
Marshall outsources it as well, so you get shitty amplifiers with shitty PCBs, and that's
but if you outsource it to Simon,
it was a bad joke.
Get something good.
Let me. I think I've got a drawing of one that this is one that I use for the video lately. It's like hand drawn with my S Pen. It's terrible.
Oh yeah, but it's actually good. Yeah,
that's what I only made that for the video because
I saw that. Okay,
I was getting so much hate of people asking, like the Kossoff video I did. People were like, "Where's the schematic?" They well, I don't have a schematic.
Yeah, I've never known you to draw a schematic one.
I'm not.
I've sent you schematics, and you're like, "That looks great, mate. I don't know what to do with it. Send me a tag board layout."
It's because I can understand it. I can follow the circuit and understand what each part does, but it's just my brain works in like a physical manner, and if it's not laid out in a physical way, it just
doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah, in the military, you find that when you open a cabinet, an electrical cabinet, there'll be two drawings in there. Hopefully, there'll be a schematic, and on the other side, a layout. And if the layout isn't there, mate, I am just like.
I like having both. I really do. I like having a layout and a schematic, just because, sometimes you'll find discrepancies in the two, and you're like, wait, what's going on?
I think for the physical stuff, if you're building it or fixing it, the layout is the best. But to understand how it works, a schematic is probably better. I'll concede that. But
the problem is that from a layout, well, for simple circuits, it's okay, but as the circuits get more complicated, you really have a huge problem understanding what certain components are doing, and
especially when you have layers of circuit board too. Like when you have 3 and 4 layer circuit boards, it's all bets are
that's
off.
Impossible. Then
for tracing that, something else. Yeah.
I think for tracing that kind of stuff, you have to be a certain person. Yeah. Tracing circuit boards is something that I cannot do. I have to do it sometimes, but it's like, oh god, people who are tracing, as you said, like multi-layered circuit boards, you really need some some special types of drugs, but unnatural drugs, some chemical stuff, like I don't know who can do it.
You need ketomethamphetamines.
Thank you.
You Americans, you're alchemists. You know that stuff.
I just prefer natural herbs. Let's put it that way. I don't need anything that's a chemical compound anymore.
I get drugs tested every week, pretty much in the place I'm in now, work-wise. So the strongest drug I have is a cup of coffee, mate. It's but yeah, as far as tracing circuits go, the actual boards, I started doing it because. I found the Navy was paying people to maintain stuff. And then they'd say there was a problem on some sort of board somewhere, charge loads of money to rectify the issue. But it wouldn't be that. It would be something simple somewhere else that I could have fixed myself. And they've just carried on charging the Navy money for, say, 6 months to fix an issue.
It's like the garage scam.
Yeah.
Oh, you got these codes. We got to clear these codes, and it's going to cost you a new catalytic converter.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So we had our garbage compactor machine worked on this real simple electronic relay circuit that just basically like up at this pneumatic, whatever, close this, open this in a sequence, and it just never worked. And I joined the ship and I was like, I'm getting this fucking thing working. And anyway, the guys who own the kit shoreside, who were like the engineers who were like charging the Navy loads of money, were saying, oh, there's a problem on this circuit board here. We think there's a break in this link. Try and make it sound technical. Talk to me. And I'd be like, there isn't a break in that link. And how'd you know? Have you changed the board? Like, no, I took it out and fucking traced it and checked the continuity. Checked it wasn't, shorting anywhere else. It's not. And they're like, well, we think this transistor's defective. Okay, I've changed that. What's next? And like, well, how did you change it? Well, I took one out my own personal stash. And they're like, they must have hated me. Well, actually,
like, you're killing our business.
They're like, who the fuck is this guy?
Our scam has been.
They wouldn't send me the drawing, so I had to make my own because they were like, they'd send me a part of it, and I'd be like, well, I need the next bit to get further. And they were so trying to control the whatever, and then they come on board. First time I met them, they come on board, and you could see in their faces like, oh, this is the guy. And then through everything that I'd done. And then afterwards they said, actually, our electrical engineer is retiring. Do you want a job? No.
Yeah, I know exactly exactly what you're talking about. When they send me a part of the schematic, oh, like, come
I
on,
hate
come
that.
on, man. Send me the whole fucking schematic, all right? So, what am I going to remember your schematic and exploit it to the world? So, you're going to lose revenue. I don't give a fuck about your schematic. I just need to fix this PCB or whatever. As you said, like waste recycling or compacting machine. I was working in the same stuff. Come on.
It's mad. But it's not even like it's a widely available commercial bit of kit. This is like a bomb.
No.
So no one else uses it.
It's like, it's not you're gonna. Well, I mean,
somebody's gonna replicate it. Where in Afghanistan or what? Make a company to.
But the Navy's tied into contracts for billions of years because the way that the Navy contracts work, if anyone really cares, is the Navy will take out the highest bidder instead of the lowest bidder, which is insane. But they'll say, right, you do all this maintenance and whatever, and then in 5 years' time, we'll pay you. So it has to be a big company.
Deferred payment.
Odds because they pay in 5 years' time, which is why and people are like, that's terrible, you overpay. But actually, it all goes to British industry, boost the economy, all that jazz, whatever. But so they've got the Navy over the back of a barrel anyway. We're going nowhere. Just help me out. I'm in a tight spot. We're off the coast of China and I can't get rid of this rubbish. And it's all around the ship and people are getting sick. Just help me out, please. Yeah, it is mad.
Yeah, but, especially when you're out there in Asia and stuff with the commercial companies like the ones that I worked with. The problem is that they want to save money, and then when you're off in Asia, well, let's just say that they don't send you the spare parts because shipping is expensive. So they wait for the ship to come back to Norway, Germany, or whatever is going to come back.
Yeah.
But it's like, we have to sail with stuff that's actually not working. That was especially problematic during COVID. And then when you get like kids, and I'm just saying kids referring to myself when I came over there, like, 27 or something, I was like that. I'm just going to make it work somehow. I'm going to repair it, But then the problem is a thing that I realized a little bit later on where, some of the older guys were telling me like, why the fuck are you doing this? I'm not paid for that. I don't have to do it. And realistically, I never got a bonus. I never got anything once in the HR department. And I have to say, and this is just talk, this is not about, me complaining about a certain company. I don't give a shit. The whole point is like, you do some things that that would, for example, cost the company, for example, 10 to 15,000 euros to get 2 engineers from, I don't know, Italy, Germany to go get to fix this thing, because that's how much this stuff costs. And you go fix it by yourself, even though it's not your job. You don't have the documentation. You just make it work. And then, after 5 years, somebody in the HR department says, the captain has this special budget, for, the best worker or whatever, the stuff that they give to those poor people that work in housekeeping, or they give them like 100 euro bonus or something. Like I don't need that money. I don't care about that. We're talking about I need 3 technicians, IT technicians, to make this ship running, and I have 0. Now I want their salaries. All right, I want their salaries on top of mine. I'm running a 300-meter cruise ship without a single IT technician, and in addition to that, I'm the communications officer. It's just like, and that's how the stuff functions, and that's the point where people who even like people like us who want to do that stop doing it.
Yeah,
because
I hate
because it's just how it works, and that's the cruel reality of it, and that's pretty much the reason. Not pretty much the reason that you've got a bunch of reasons, but I wanted to change my career because obviously I see this like, where is this going? This is leading me to a place where I'm going to become Marko who doesn't give a fuck. And
you're going to become the hamster on the wheel.
Yeah.
I'm going to get paid. I'm just going to do my job. I go for a cigarette, to deck 5, and I go to the crew bar, and, should I repair it? I don't care. And then you start understanding the people who worked there before you. Because when I came, I was like, why they didn't repair this? Why is this not working? It's so easy to repair. Then you realize like, these people don't give a fuck because they figured out the system, and that's the system. That's how it's working. Somehow the ship is sailing. you don't even want to know who's driving the ship because you go fucking nuts. It's fucking, you should hear, one of the best things is when you listen to the conversation between the ECR to the engine control room and the bridge with an Italian officer talking to a German engineer.
Oh boy, I'll bet that one's spicy.
No, but it's like, a ship is full of stuff, but God bless the good officers. There were some of them who were great, like deck officers, but most of them, let me not use the R word. All right.
So what I found was that they don't have an understanding of what actually goes on in other people's. Yeah. So I personally made it my mission to go and stand on a bridge a couple of times when we were doing, say, like we were doing replenishment at sea, Razin, or going alongside, or doing a difficult maneuver. I go up and just watch and see what's going on, because sometimes I go up there and be like, why don't they just do this one thing for me? So annoying. And then you get up there and you'd see them running around and they're trying to look at like 50 billion things and the measure and stuff. And I like, oh, now I understand why they're late getting back to me about the whatever thing. But they never bother doing that. So they'd be like, we'd be in rough weather and I'm looking at a shaft speed indicator and it's going between, say, 65 shaft RPM and 80 shaft RPM because the way on the ship, which is our speed. And they'll be like changing from 65 to 66, as if I'm going to be able to change one revolution when it's swinging 10 either side. And this one time, I remember this guy. He was really, I don't know why posh people do this, but he had like a pinky ring, and he's like the most posh person I've ever met in my life. I think his dad was some high up count or whatever, landowner, don't know. But we were sitting in Scran afterwards, and he said, "Thank you, Chief. Whoever was on your throttles today was really responsive. It was whatever." I said, "Sir, we didn't move the levers once," and then carried on eating my food, and he was like, the whole dine and all was just erupting in laughter. But it's like, you have no concept of what goes on in this other place. But I've always found that if you make the effort to go and just talk to these people and find out what's happening in their world, that's making them give less of a fuck towards the important thing over here that I want to achieve. I found that really helped. Yeah,
I know a lot of companies that like that's where their whole success came from. They had everybody understand what everybody else was doing, and so everybody started working together to make the common goal a reality rather than blaming each other for it not being the reality.
I mean, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to
have a little bit of common sense, some critical thinking, and some common sense are what a lot of people have like thrown out with the bathwater, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a rare commodity now.
I used to think it was everywhere, and now it's just like, whoa, where is it all gone?
I think I have no common sense. My missus sometimes says to me that I'm the stupidest clever person.
I don't know.
Do you know,
that means you probably have a lot of common sense.
I once, when we first got together, I was booking a hotel because we obviously didn't own our own home, wanted the night away together, and I was like, oh, hotel, this is only 7 miles away. I'll book that. Like on a work night or whatever, booked it, a couple £100. And I said, so I've booked this hotel, we can go tonight. And she was like, yes, it's 7 miles away, but that's on Isle of Wight. How are we going to get there? It's like over a body of water. It's like
7 miles.
Like technically it's 7 miles away. Like, you're just stupid. What are you playing at?
Have you got a boat?
Yeah, it's like, how are we going to get to work in the morning at 7 o'clock when there's no ferries that time? Speaking of figuring things out, Dave Barry says, Joe, you can use win later to use Windows software on Android.
Oh yeah,
might be a workaround for you to use the DIY layout creator.
Oh yeah,
I feel like this is something that
potentially can work.
Yep.
There is a possibility. I think that the DIY layout creator is programmed in Java. I think. Let me just.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me just take a look at this if I can see. But
also,
seems like
I got
it looks like Java to me, the worst programming language ever. I remember fucking hated that shit.
That's how we do our promotion reports on Java. It's a
Java. Oh,
not fun. That's another thing I hate about
should-
the Navy promotion reports. Like, who wants them? If I'm terrible at writing, everyone who works for me, which is 60 people at the minute, will get a terrible report and potentially not promoted. Like, it's terrible.
yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
That is the procedures.
I'm getting the warning like I probably am going to have my battery die on me. So
oh,
we're at 3 hours and 18 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah,
It actually passes so quickly.
it does. It seems
really
like we
does.
just started half an hour ago and just got our juices flowing and into it, and it's like, oh, it's 3 hours later. My phone's dying.
But look at this. This was more like a Joe Rogan podcast because we kind of talked about, guitar gear and pedals, but half of the time we were talking about life, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes together. I think everything's interconnected. Like, you can't just play guitar in a vacuum. You can play through vacuum tubes, but you're still in an atmosphere.
Look, check it out. Danger Electro. Hello, mate. We're just signing off. Nice of you to join us today. Get in. Perfect timing. Well, thank you to everyone who's watched thus far. I've been Hello Sailor Joe.
I've been John Mulholland, Space Wolf.
And I've been
And
Marko.
again,
Slightly technical.
Marko with the best hair. If you don't follow Marko, please go and follow him.
Yeah, you need to. Like, as soon as I saw his videos, I was like, Joe, check this guy out. He's like, I've been watching his stuff.
So you need to catch up on that, and we're going to have Marko back for another episode, definitely, because I feel like we haven't done yet.
Oh, yes. Cheers, guys.
I love it. Cheers.